Until a person knows what's fully going on every day, they subconsciously make an agreement to also align with the negative force. There is no neutral gray area, everything must stay in motion. These people are often used unknowingly but are just as effectively. There is no shame in it. A person can be used and manipulated in various ways until they take back control of their life, which comes first in knowing what's really going on. Reason 118 again, there is no limit to how many people will join the Illuminati circus if they are given the opportunity. As I said before, once you are in the know, you will see it everywhere. Imagine. These two artists both released CDs related to the circus, the home of the animist. One is called womanizer, clearly a term that should not be respected, and yet thousands of women bought the CD upon its release. T-Pain, whose name is enough explanation, shows the 33 on his cover and of course the skull. All this is looked over by the fan who just wants to hear the tunes. Pan and his flute win again. All this is for a reason. Stay alert. Since this matrix is based on colors, sounds, shapes, and numbers, you have an opportunity to view the program. Thousands if not millions of Americans faced heavy levels of mind control in the 80s and 90s just by leaving their TV on after the last show and falling asleep for a good 3 hours of low vibration frequency, which was the prolonged sound you would hear before the station went off the air. It is of value to also point out that these entities are not ignorant, doomed possibly, but not ignorant. They have been here for eons and carry the wisdom of eons, and many in exchange for that wisdom have sold their very souls. Reason 119 Max Headroom's aired sometime in the mid-80s in the United States. Few remember this show, however so much mind control went across every episode with the colors, shapes, and design of the background along with Max's frequency-enhanced voice. There is no telling how extensive the programming could have been. Coding like this has everything to do with why people are clueless to reality. As you see with words like sly, slick, sneaky, sick, seduced, slain, and way too many to itemize here, all these words have one thing in common. They all begin with S, so now you are beginning to learn about the symbols of the English language. In the English language there are words that are kept as triggers to use by the elite. Words that are laden with SS always tend to be bad news, like possession, Hitler's SS, and men like Haile Selassie, Samuel, Saturn, Satan, Shamash, Santa, Sananda, Sodom, etc. We call what belongs to us our possessions, although this word has a dual meaning as many words do. Possession means also to have something that is taking over you, thus changing your character. We find this true with rock and rap CDs, horror movies, violent video games, risque clothing, weapons, idols, and many other things really possess a person, which makes it of value to rid yourself of things that are carrying negative energy. Reason 120 Idols have always been a problem throughout time. No matter what one may think the idol represents, the true origin of many idols are unknown by the possessor. Think of this: if the statues and depictions of Jesus and Mary used in Christianity are of Anglo descent but Jesus was supposed to be Hebrew, who do you think they are the renditions of? Do you think it matters? In addition, the subconscious mind can sustain heavy altering when put to the extent of placing the subjects of belief, deliverance, and assistance in an inanimate object. Reason 121 The Illuminist Walt Disney introduced the young mind to a world of magic and strange characters. Movies like Alice in Wonderland had entirely different meaning. Seeing movies like Angels in the Outfield analyzed by film expert Lennon Honor on YouTube revealed profound amounts of pedophilia. It is clear Disney and his group of dark magicians are out to hurt children, introduce dark magic into the household, and bring about the continued plan of population mind control. Keep your kids away from Disney films. Just as we faced as children a constant array of sick suggestive media indoctrination, the new generation faces a hybrid version of the same thing. Parents are unknowingly opening the gate of negative forces to the children at an early age. It may be fun to watch the baby dance to your favorite hip-hop or rock song, but what is it actually doing to such an innocent unprotected mind? Especially since it is not condoned but promoted by the only person the child may know as its guide at such a young age. I'm not saying this needs to change. I believe it's too late for that. Most children now run their parents. What I am bringing light to is the results of such things. Like I said before, the hybrid version of indoctrination wants more than just the innocent body, it wants the soul. Many parents are responsible for delivering it to the deity on a silver saucer because they are themselves under illusions. Reason 122. The original story of Pan's labyrinth and dark esoteric works was that of Pan molesting little girls placed in his labyrinth by sadistic worshippers. The story gets a rendition, some graphical enhancements, then comes out in theater and wins tons of awards. Once again the ills have fooled thousands into loving their sworn enemy. You have learned enough about deities now to understand that this card of Persephone, used in this children's game, actually encourages a young girl to evoke the Dark Queen damned to the underworld. People are still acting like none of this is going on. Many are sitting back watching the children get hurt and won't lift a finger. It's amazing. I have received little human support on the path, mostly ridicule, and I do this for their children. Indeed, the weight is heavy lifting the world and Atlas. So it be written, let it be done. On sluggish strength we have a little sign amongst those that I share thoughts with, which is when we crack into something because the code is constantly revealing new stuff, we often put our hand very close to our faces. That is where all the information is hidden, right in front of our faces. Of course, being that it would be the last place that you would ever look. As you see, the Great Pyramids are four-sided pyramids, not three. If you notice, everything around you, such as doors, windows, rooms and even work cubicles, have all adapted the four-sided 2D or eight-sided 3D cuboid shape or box. There are certain words I call power words, like instead of going backwards we should be going forwards. But what are the four words? Are there four words that give us foreknowledge? We are even told that our ancestors or forefathers made history. The Tetragrammaton YHVH, which is the Hebrew word that remains as the root to many esoteric names such as Jehovah H and Yahweh H, consists also of only four words. As we continue to see, there is something diabolical going on here with the four, which in sacred geometry is a two-dimensional square, four-dimensional cube, and eight-dimensional octagon. This is how worlds connect. All words like Dionysus, Dios, Diana, diamond, divide, diabolical, and Diablo are all intertwined and related with a story in antiquity. The D itself in the English language is the symbol of a circle divided in two. If you break a box right now and look at the manufacturer of the breaker, you will see the company Square D, the logo is a D inside a square. They control everything related to power, as will be shown. The esoteric Masonic studies were focused on what they called squaring the circle. Since all organic life contains no straight edges and is always curved and circular, this was the art of trapping organic life and holding them in various forms of stasis. natural organic matter like me and you, and inorganic cubes like the cubicles we are sent to work in every day and the houses we are given to live in, or sometimes foolishly build ourselves in the wrong designs. Putting ourselves into cubes and calling them home, this is another fine example of subtle programming. They are masters of the 2D primitive world of matter, which is black and white, no color, thus the black and white checkered pattern is one of their signs. 160 PAGE 161 PAGE. Reason 123. As what is hidden comes into plain view, you will see their signs everywhere. They own huge companies such as the Checkered Cab of New York. He makes the sign of the L as the owl. The sacred bird of Isis is also in the picture. Some are still human, some are not, however we will face them. Their plan is almost complete, even Sir Winston Churchill was in on it, but that should not surprise you. Their magic is that of mastering the cube as the world is treated as grand chessboard. They also master knowing how to move about the square without getting caught in the web. Have you ever seen a spider get trapped in its own web? All of the pyramids at one point in history were connected and they had functioning capstones on top. Not to mention many of the pyramids were completely coated with a substance that was washed away during the last flood. This substance allowed these great structures to reflect the sun's energy, giving them the ability to become like large solar panels, generating various energies depending upon the tuning. In deeper writings it states that the gods would land their ships on the top of these structures and they would serve as charging stations. Those traveling the desert could navigate their way by the shining light of the Great Pyramid, which could be seen for thousands of miles. The much older Hindu Puranas and Vedas describe detailed accounts of ships used by hyperdimensional beings. When the gods visited Earth, they would arrive in large ships, which were in other written accounts as large flying beasts because they made such monstrous noises, obviously the sound from the engines. Then they would set themselves up in the temples man had built for them, lounge, and get served. This was one of the earlier versions of the Matrix that was washed away by the last Aquarian Age flood. It seems that the destruction and chaos of these Aquarian ages are not limited to just the unsuspecting people, but often the deities themselves get destroyed by the forces of nature. When I say false, I don't mean they don't exist, I mean they lie, and what they say is false as in not true, because they never make good on their word. 162 PAGE. This is how the whole cosmic clock is tuned, right at the time things are about to reach critical mass and all hope has vanished. Right at the time where people think there isn't even a Most High. Right at the time deities, people, beings and every created thing is in motion, a click happens that expands or contracts the experience. It is up to you to choose. The Egyptians actually admitted that there was a Most High being greater than the gods, but because they had not made contact with it, probably because of their dominant attitudes, they choose to obey the entities that they were already familiar with. They are called familiar spirits. It becomes clear with the sign of Aquarius that the water bearer is dumping out a bucket of water upon the earth, thus cleansing the earth from its current pesky inhabitants and getting it prepared for the next edition. The Great Pyramid itself in Egypt is said to have had 18 inches of special coating washed away from its surface. Many people look at the pharaohs of Egypt and try to grasp how such an ancient empire was so far advanced. You will also see how the feline, which is the Sphinx, plays an important role. The sign of the lioness is used in modern symbolism relating to the ruling monarch. Female, fertility, feline, and feminine all begin with fe for a reason. As you see on the crest of England, the ruling power personifies itself as a lion, which can also be mapped in the cosmos by the constellation Leo. The females were hidden by direct order and the female role remained hidden and protected, or simply put, veiled. As can be seen in Egyptology, the Egyptian female goddess Mat was the third eye of all Egyptian gods, also known as Wadjet. This means that the eye on top of the pyramid is actually the eye of Mat. They keep the female sphinx in front of all their main lodges for protection against various spiritual forces the elite are at war with. Egyptians kept large amounts of cats in their temples. Cats carry lots of prana and are very sensitive to other life forms. They are known to contain an astral spirit that can be trained. As you will be delighted to find out, since it gives you power and strength to know. This is none other than one of Mars' tricks, or simply the matrix that we are caught up in now. The Egyptian worshipped matter as the primal cause. Our word for matter comes from the word mat. The Atlanteans perfected the ability to take matter, which is flesh formed and fashioned into a human body, and then take a soul and animate the body with the soul. The matter was their creation and the soul was of course the creation of the Most High. To do this they would have to pull souls from lower dimensions, other worlds, or wherever they could get souls. Finding souls was like mining for gold. This whole art is called necromancy, thus one cannot simply die and think it is over. They must somehow bypass reincarnation, which was always considered a curse, as if you had been netted like a fish and pulled back into the planet-planned net. Cloning makes it possible to make the body. Necromancy makes it possible to animate the body with a spirit. This is the other variation of the Philosopher's Stone, in which the alchemist used his body as the test subject. He would then add more elements, forces, spirits to his own body to enhance his abilities. If the alchemist did not have 163 PAGE, the correct formula of how to control the matter while the process was taking, it would result in his own death or complete possession, and that, my good friend, is the alchemical key. You can trace the most recent use of this soul tampering to the Sumerian Anunnaki, who are now professing they are the creators of man and woman and created them to be slaves. The true story is that Danu, also known as to all the Danann, the tribe of Dan, the Danites who were known to be giants, did discover the secret to Dnadan. The old Celtic doctrines speak of the Danu and some of their origin, in which they are clearly part of the Atlantean Club, which explains how they also had the knowledge of how to alter humans. They are also known as simply An. The A in the English language is the symbol of Atlantis, emitting the crossing of the A. The crossing makes it a pyramid with a capstone. It was normally written to look like an upside-down V, which still meant 5. Mary's mother was named Anne. She was carrying the lineage of the bloodlines so they could erect a world savior that all would eventually bow to, no matter how many they needed to create. This has been going on at least since Mithras. Reason 124. The Egyptians symbolized the spirit as a snake. In this glyph they have already trapped the spirit inside of these holding tubes. They are now placing the spirits in the clone's matter golem so they may be endowed with the intelligence and reason of the soul, thus they make better servants rather than organic machines which need to take orders before they will engage. How the elite work is they expand their rule like a pyramid and elect many consorts in a system of hierarchy. Then they consolidate all of the power that they pull from the people back into the main deity and close the top through the Hierophant, seldom distributing anything of true value. When beings come to a new planet they first set up a gate. When gates are destroyed, which has been happening, a being can no longer come into this dimension, trapping those who originally came through the gate on the planet until they are able to reconstruct the gate on the proper ley line and 164 PAGE. Make the jump back to their original planet. This is often referenced in many chronicles, annuals, and even the Bible. It often reads, "They tore down their gates and dispersed their gods." Reason 125. The eyes of Wadjet Mat always shown separate, so you cannot visualize what the complete being would look like, but now you see it is not human, it is more like the predator. The Great Pyramid's wormhole 0-point configuration is probably how continuous reincarnation, or should I say soul snatching, is happening on Earth. Necromancy obviously became primitive when new ways to harvest departed souls was discovered. There are small occult groups still practicing Goetia the old way. Due to the information already known about the pyramids, if you happen to come out of your body while in the vicinity of the pyramid, it would eventually suck you in like going down a sink. This is called a vortex wormhole black hole. When that happens you would come out somewhere, and as I mentioned briefly, it seems the pyramid could be tuned to determine where those entering its vortex would come out. Those with strong spirits have the thrust to trust they can jettison away from the whirlpool. Whirlpool. This book is being composed as Greater Israel is being realized, of course at the expense of thousands of Palestinian children's lives who have no clue of the significance of their land and bloodline. Even in Baghdad, soldiers were issued swords and began cutting off heads of the people with certain last names by instruction of their commanding officers. The people of Baghdad still contain the bloodline of the ancient Anunnaki. However, organizations such as Thule, who have now the UN and several world leaders behind them, intend to take over all gates for their purposes. Saddam Hussein went rogue after he began excavation and restoration of the ancient city of Babylon located in Iraq. He was noted to spend at least $300 million using the best archaeologists money could buy. This is what the US wanted, so they allowed Saddam to get to a certain point. Once he compared himself to Nebuchadnezzar, they knew it was time to remove him, since Nebuchadnezzar, 165 PAGE, conquered the world, and the US was not going to see another rendition of that. Everything that is going on in Baghdad has to do with the Stargate of the Babylonians and the Tower of Babel. Babylon is on a very powerful ley line that has the ability of becoming a portal to cross dimensions with proper geometric setup. Marduk-Ra declared Babylon his eternal city and coated everything in gold. Reason 126. Here is a rendition of the Babylonian ziggurat or tower. The king resided in the top with the gods in the clouds. As we have already discussed, pantheism is the belief and worship of more than one god, so we will review a few popular gods amongst the people. Marduk, who is Ra, takes most of the spotlight. He is at times head over the demoniac pantheism of the inverted tree of the underworld or netherworld, world. All world leaders are now rebuilding towers to Ra, who is their lord. Here are a few of his generals. We will call them the dark side. Abaddon, Adreamlech, Ahriman, Ammon, Apollyon, Asmodeus, Asteroth, Azazel, Baal and the Baalim, not a singing group, Baphomet, Bast, Beelzebub, Behemoth, Beherit, Baal, Chemosh, Cimmeriz, Coyote, Dagon, Damballa, Demogorgon, Diablos, Dracula, Amo, Euronymous, Fenriz, Gorgo, Halborim, Hecate, Ishtar, Kali, 166 PAGE. Lachm, Lilith, Loki, Mammon, Mania, Mantis, Marduk, Mastema, Mliktaus, Mephistopheles, Metzli, Midgard, Milcom, Moloch, Morm, Nerma, Nahasa, Niger, Oyam, Pan, Pluto, Persephone, Pwcca, Rimmon, Sabatsios, Satan, Samul, Samnu, Sedit, Sekhmet, Set, Shaitan, Shiva, Supe, Tanmo, Chut, Zetzatlipoca, Thames, Thoth, Tunrada, Typhon, Yautzin, Yenlo Wang. There are of course many more than these mentioned. However, these in particular are in the German Satanic Bible, so there should be no questions with the beings listed here of whether they are good or bad. They are the orchestrators of evil, and 100% darksiders keep them and anyone representing them away from anything you love and care about. They are a sad lot. We shall place great chains around their necks and drag them about in ridicule before they are particularized and dispersed to the winds. Reason 127. As you see, they are not really hiding their affiliation with Babylon Bel-Ra Marduk. The picture on the left has inverted pentagrams and the people are shaped like cubes. These types of images are rich with symbolism. The tower itself is complete and several other towers are nearing completion. It was even more fascinating to see Van Diesel, the actor, with a tattoo of the Necromancy sigil on his neck in the movie Babylon AD. In another movie, The Chronicles of Riddick, he actually battles necromongers, holy half-deads from the underworld who take over worlds by combining their souls with humans through non-voluntary possession. In Babylon AD, his role is to protect a woman who will birth the final seed of Babylon, the Antichrist twins with genetically enhanced powers. What is being said in secret circles is once the lineup happens, the gates will be opened and many beings will have the opportunity to go into different planes and dimensions through portals. This is a time of great going and coming. 167 PAGE. The star of Holy Rs Widara below Rias Resonators of the stars AF above. Upper RSON seldom gets into the A acting industry and establishes AC career until they are in tune W their PS with position. Many actors can be found playing the same type O role, such as the Savio role K. Reeves is often given in S of H or an of like The Matrix, Johnny Mnemvi's Monic, The Day the Earth Stood Still, and A Scanner D Darkly. This S is all a part of T Heavy PRL the Rograman being done to the Vingeniua. It is a fact that many people in La Whole Lywood are initiates and know for a fact the roles they play at TND are playtimes Inisha Ashens. Madon who we talked about briefly actually initiated Christine Aguilera on stage D now during an hour show WH dismissed Britney Spears we're to holy kiss just as TH ritual and RD hiling YTHSS he tails. She begins by walking down a 13-step pyramid in F front of million view who on if you knew what wow actually was NLY as Tarkin place. WNG watching branched in his care after the night while like watch irritating a horror show WH or Heil Christina Beaker Miss TE cover G etc. TH same thighs with me in, girl, eing acid with a Rihanna in H Hario en on Hono or films on YouTube D a prefer job at exit exposing amongst umbrella vidi which le man other astonishingly things about the film industry ni at this particular topic about ho movies, see our cartoons, comics, and various other types of HRF propaganda th a rough history are all being used to communicate and portray Marso and Elro-onic litist ceremonies, inductions, Kuya and information, and the statue of world domination has all be rolled NDS in Odran title synchrony isticism. Th word mehazines the clay identific cation of certain up into the monvolvesot activity embedded within the media for various re-eric deisms. This has patterns that in Beko so popular a sync on chromistic W Wikipedia H now be formed as N. 168 PAGE. Reason 128 The media keeps a constant broadcast of esoteric information going which works twofold. It serves to keep various members of the elite in the know of current situations, while making the average person continue to believe it's all a part of the entertainment. The year 2010 will be anything but entertainment for those who are not prepared. Watch. With this unraveling of secrets that seem to begin after the Twin Towers collapsed, those who have begun investigating under the pretense of conspiracy have uncovered a trail of immense proportion. Many things reveal that not only are we dealing with a force that has the ability to traverse space and time, it also has the supreme intelligence of a master architect or master builder. When you begin to look into these matters, you find an inner network of people from various nationalities and backgrounds all in the know, which allows them to be more mentally, financially, and physically superior than the average person. When the Twin Towers collapsed, which was the tower card number 16, the consciousness of the planet shifted starting in Oz NY. The Twin Towers themselves were giant tuning forks with the base of this structure infused into the chambers that kept the gold reserve. 169 PAGE. Reason 129 The Twin Towers, which we will call Jarachin and Boas, were tuning forks setting the frequency and consciousness for the city which is silently the capital of the United States, New York, the land of Oz. The globe placed at the base of the fallen towers is now the controlling device until the Freedom Towers are complete in 2012. There has been profound amounts of publications found that date back as far as 1960 indicating that the tower would eventually be collapsed in some massive Masonic mega-ritual. There are enough books and movies on the full details of the 9/11 plot, so I will only discuss what many of the conspiracy researchers have missed. Now that 9/11 has passed, it is for many just another moment in time because they did not lose any loved ones. For those families that lost a loved one, they are torn between this conspiracy and that conspiracy. It is fact that this was an orchestrated event that signaled the dawn of a new view of how we see our leaders. I will also say that I believe those people did not die in vain. It was that single event that made many wake up and see things deeper. Thousands of lives are lost every day due to plans that we could interpret, interrupt, and prevent if we would wake up and learn how the spiritual world functions, along with its signs and symbols. 170 PAGE. Reason 130. Since the elite are notorious for following the 22-card tarot deck, it was already divined that they would cause the tower to fall. In the FEMA terrorism self-study manual, the towers are shown with a bullseye Aldebaran over the South Tower. This manual was published in June 1999, way before the towers fell. They already knew it was going to happen. The gold that was contained in the WTC towers was moved to Dubai. In fact, most of the gold in the world is now in Dubai. If one has investments in gold bullion and would like to take delivery, it is to come from Dubai. In Dubai, it is clear by the architecture they are expecting the arrival of a being. Since the Anunnaki bloodlines trace mainly through the regions of what is now the Arab world, it is almost guaranteed they are expecting the return of Marduk and have gathered the gold as instructed. These beings are at the root of the mental and physical enslavement that has faced man and woman. It is also their bloodlines the elite are attempting to keep preserved. It is also clear the Anunnaki are masters at keeping their identity unknown. Although the Sumerian tablets are some of the oldest writings discovered, stories of the Anunnaki which are contained on cuneiform tablets did not start to really leak until after September 11. Zechariah Sitchin wrote extensive books on their workings. These books did not get much attention from those who did not already know about the Sumerians and the Anunnaki until recently. 171 PAGE. Reason 131. The Anunnaki are possibly the oldest reptilian faction to infiltrate Earth. The elder Anunnaki eventually left Earth with the ship Nibiru to return once their ship makes its next pass by Earth, as it does every 26,000 years. They left their sibling and offspring in charge while they were gone. It just so happens that 26,000 years comes to completion on December 21, 2012 at 11:11 a.m. Reports say Nibiru can now be seen approaching from the South Pole. The Anunnaki are shapeshifters, so they can take on many forms such as birdmen, cherubs, and dragons. Their offspring such as the Danu Nimrod became the kings of Sumeria. They were of large stature. Before we move from the subject of the Anunnaki, there is one more thing that must be known. It's apparent that the interaction with the Anunnaki males and the Earth females seems to parallel Genesis, especially since all these stories are Sumerian, and of course the Sumerians had the fallen angel story first. These angels were actually advanced winged reptilians. There is definitely a link here. Furthermore, these bloodlines have now claimed to be the blue blood elite that have been ruling like tyrants. Blue is the color of the serpent's blood. Magdalena was said to be the twin sister of Jesus who was carrying the bloodline. She was married into the House of Windsor, Hanover, Miro, Goth, Viso, etc. These are all blue bloods. Finally, the Grail became Princess Diana, and as planned she brought forth Prince William, of whom many are implicating as the Antichrist. It is of value to remember that the Antichrist does not have the power. It is the beast and the false prophet who he teams up with, and they form a trinity. Lord Maitreya was 172 PAGE. Seen on the boat when a major meeting of the world's top secret societies, such as the Knights of Malta, took place. It is highly possible Lord Maitreya will be the false prophet. The Pope has agreed to take the position after Maitreya rather than before. The beast is the red dragon, and I don't feel it is time to reveal who that really is due to the amount of disbelief which will occur. If the second edition is allowed to come forth, I will reveal it then, and by that time much of what I'm talking about now you will already see. When Princess Diana began to date Doti Fade, it seemed the royal house was very sore about this, or was all this part of the plan to mix the reptilian bloodlines with Anunnaki? Another name for the Anunnaki is Anu Doti. When Diana's autopsy came forward, it stated she was pregnant with twins before her death. It is known also by those who meditate day and night and expect their maker at any moment, that the Jesuit priests are now training one group of twins. Twins have the speciality of both parallels being born in the same womb, thus combined they have heightened spiritual ability if they pursue it. 173 PAGE. Reason 132 as can be seen here by this statue made by instruction. Prince Charles has no problem depicting himself as the Prince Lucifer who was cast out of heaven. The royal family are the laymen of the demonic pantheism, and they now control most of the world. The Bible makes sure to include that Satan is the ruler of this world. As I said before, they will have to be faced, or they will continue to decimate everything innocent and pure as their ranks increase with the youth who are conned into practicing the things abhorred in the high heavens. Prince William the Golden Boy is continuously prepped for his role as the New World Antichrist ruler. Surely he will be struck so hard his jewels will fall from his crown. There is another planet that used to be in our system known as Meldek that is no longer with us due to another civil war which went nuclear on their surface. I personally believe this is a very big connection that will put pieces together for many who have already engaged in finding out what's going on but can't connect certain things. Here is what I know. Salt Lake City is located on top of a vast underground caverns system predating this interim of man. Those caverns systems connect through underground Nevada Area 60, 13, 51, and probably every major underground hub up into Mount Shasta and various regions of Alaska. Generally when they dig underground it is to extend the system. This system is controlled by the unseen hand built by the Atlanteans. It can be seen as the backbone of the Matrix. Zion is already running and is underground, which cannot be seen the movie Matrix but also the movie Ember. When entering a Mormon sanctuary, the highest priority is to trace your genealogy. They contain the world's largest database of genealogy, rivaled by only Israel's. The Jews keep extensive records to prove their lineage and bloodline. You cannot enter inside the temple unless your genealogy can be verified by them. We will continue to establish the link between the Anunnaki, the Hibirus, Nibiru, Meldek, and the Melchizedeks as we go on. The entire priesthood of the earth reside under one roof. The divisions between religions are now mending because they were always together in the background. One part of the design was to get the people to continue to quarrel, which is chaos, called in Latin chao. This buys time. Chaos produces a mist or smoke screen. When chaos is breaking out, anything can go on because everyone's attention is on something else. 174 PAGE. Let us look at the division of the minds of the world for a moment to see why there are not many coming to the aid of those who really wish to go beyond this university and into the cosmos, because the course is over. Some have the knowledge while others have the resources. They must join, or it is left for one's individual self to make your body a ship, activating a portal and exit the dimension. When you head to the Arab world, they are monotheist and are waiting on the Mahdi, the 12th or 12th Imam. Why is it taking these masters so long to show up? Their people are dying by the masses. In reason, there should be no way the US, who they call the cursed Dajjal, a serpent beast known also as Nakash, should be able to infiltrate the Great Orient and murder everything in sight unless their power has somehow waned and they have been fooled to believe things that are not true, thus depleting their spiritual shield, which is the real personal barrier before the physical. Many are angry and have taken up arms against Tubal-Cain. I ask the Arabs and jihadists, did not your great master say Tubal-Cain the blacksmith was the lord of weapons of great destruction? You cannot beat him at his own great art. Our strength does not lie in weapons fashioned of metal, it is with spirit, crystal power and control of the ability, particle energy, which moveth massive stones, even mountains, with the mind, lay to waste powerful beast, and keeping malignant jinn at bay. We learn this from the Most High, the wise, who will always remain above all things. The quarrel is between archons like Jaldabaoth, dominions such as Jesu, rulers such as the Queen Lizard Elizabeth of England, principalities like Lucifer, and kings like Asmodeus. 175 PAGE. Reason 133 top left. This is the official seal of the dominion of the Order of Melchizedek, the High Priesthood. This links Christianity, Judaism, and Islam all together. The jewel of the 33rd Order out of chaos. I still find it amazing that although a few people have already made it known, the 33rd degree is made to look like the highest degree when it is not. I know of 90 degrees by title, and there are 360 in which only one can hold the title of each. Here is another thing to think about. If everything is based on sound and every combination of those sounds can be found on a piano scale, there are then 12 octaves on the scale and a 13th overtone. If we're at 3, which is C, we are 2 scales away from the lowest dimension. When you hear the low keys on a piano, you can feel the vibration of danger those keys emit. It is time to wake up and really understand where you are in this whole thing, rather than just imaging everything will work itself out. We must begin to engage life the proper way or face the results of such negligence as things run amok. Continuing on the trail, we find that the Arabs contained detailed information in regards to the involvement of these invaders and us. They have accounts that have survived for ages of ships they called the Shams visiting Earth. It is safe to say that the Arabs had already familiarized themselves with these beings and even worshipped them. I find an uncanny similarity in the name of Allelu, the first Anunnaki to find Earth before his brother Anu, and the Muslim god Allah. The story of Allelu's 176 PAGE. Discovery of the Earth is the first part of the Sumerian tablets, which is seldom mentioned amongst scholars since Anu becomes the chief god of the tablets. They immediately go into the story of Anu as ruler, Enlil, Each, Mujuk, Inanna, Ningursag, Gilgamesh, etc. This also lets us know these beings are not referred to as Anunnaki amongst themselves, since it is clear Anu, the brother of Allelu, earned the right, because of his victory over his brother in battle, to name their lineage on Earth Anunnaki. The Sumerian tablets that precedes the one in common publication states that Allelu made the journey from the home planet of the Anunnaki first in order to find a planet that contained the resources to save their world. He was then considered the bravest for accomplishing an almost impossible task. After lengthy travel through the solar system, Tiamat was discovered and Allelu set a course to enter the atmosphere, in which ended in a crash landing into the ocean. With atmosphere suits he came upon land, not knowing if the air was yet breathable. Once gold was found, Allelu sent communication back to the home planet of his find. When I think of all this, the movie Predator comes to mind again. Apparently the second to arrive was Anu, Allelu's brother, who challenges him for the newfound territory by a wrestling match. It says Allelu lost this match and was exiled along with his trusty companion. Later it says that Allelu challenged Anu again and lost a second time. It says that Allelu was so angry about this that he bit off his brother's penis. For this the Council of the Gods banished Allelu to Mars, a world that was only inhabitable underground. The face on Mars is said to be the face of Allelu, a shrine to him who found Tiamat first and saved their home planet. Amazingly, the story of Osiris and his brother Set are somewhat similar, missing penis and all. Could the Muslims be worshipping Allelu as the one and only god because he was the first of the gods to come to Earth? Getting back to the gold, we find that all the gold of the world has now been transported to the UAE, Dubai, the strongest financial superstructure in the world right now. For those who can truly appreciate architecture and sacred geometry, they will find the structures of Dubai spellbinding. A brand new version of the Tower of Babel has been constructed, boasting itself as the tallest building in the world, shaped just like a modern ziggurat. The gates of Ishtar have been reconstructed to be in at least 3 times their original proportion. You find 8-sided pyramids rather than the old 4-sided pyramids, which makes it clear that everything is evolving. They now have crossed into the 16. As I said above, when the gods return, their spirit often takes up habitants in the temples man constructs for them. It is clear after a while that those who were pharaohs allowed their bodies to become vessels for the gods, so thus the deity spoke through them. It makes sense that no common man will become ruler of this world. He would have to be in close association with the powers and dominions that be. 177 PAGE. The world sits and watches powerless as the elite in the UN play like they cannot stop Israel from bombing Gaza back into the Stone Age. Why is it that they really don't want to hold back Israel even after they bombed a UN convoy? It is as simple as the name. Israel stands for Isis and of course her consort Ra, lord of the underworld from the land of Dar, and El, who is Saturn, the Lord of the Rings. The Star of David carries the hexagram in its center. Words like elect, elite, elevated, Elohim, Elysium and many more are all Saturnalian words. Just as Earth is alive, as people often forget, other planets are alive also and can be contacted through frequency, shapes, and colors tied into a perfect system. Pythagoras, the old Python from Samos, taught this in his schools. The elite have coveted this information and have used it to rule the people, thus barring the way to ascension, while not getting through themselves what joy will come when they shall prevail no longer. Reason 134. Saturn has hexagonal north and south poles. NASA pretends to be baffled by this phenomena. This is also why the Seal of Solomon, also called the Star of David, is a hexagon star, because it evokes the spirits from the sphere of Saturn. Other planets also have geometric correspondence that serve for evocation purposes. A branch of Hyksos shepherd kings left Egypt under Thutmose III, aka Moses, to take over the land of Canaan, which became Palestine then Israel. This is told in the Tales of Egyptology as the story of Ra deciding to depart from Egypt. This was the time the cult of Ra left Egypt and spread, 178 PAGE, through most of the world. Even the other day I overheard a Bob Marley song with him saying in the beginning, if a man does not serve Ras, he will never see no peace. What kind of talk is this? The takeover was initiated and much blood was wrought up to the bridle. Once they gained a foothold, it gave birth to Zionism. These bloodlines all connect by way of Babylon, Sumeria, Egypt, Chaldea, Syria and even Nubia, and together the Brotherhood of the Snake began to expand and divvy up the world and its resources, and the humans remained completely unsuspecting, for a time. When bad things happen in this world, people begin to pray. This gives the deities more energy to make more bad things happen so the people can pray more, a vicious cycle. All main religions use these beings as their backbone and seldom teach self-empowerment through the manipulation of body energy. They say true, you can reach higher states, but not without the aid of so-and-so. There are two separate doctrines, one for you and one for them. Generally, if the spirit is alive, it will manifest. That is the doctrine of the elite. The people are taught to remain in blind faith, never seeing the God and only maintaining a one-sided dialogue with a crucified Lord. All real prophets, yogis, and brahmas maintain vivid contact with the spiritual realm. The doctrine of the elite gives them power, which is instilled by communing with these beings. The belief system for the commoner leaves them powerless. As they say, the more prayers go up, the more blessings come down. Be blessed. These are the words that have to be analyzed by the individual believer if they expect to discover why they're still waiting on something that should have already come. So the truth behind Israel is they are evoking the assistance of entities they discovered while playing with written Kabbalah, along with some creepy residue from ancient Egypt all the way back to the groves of Ur. Although thousands of people from different countries are protesting the Gaza situation, they find their governments doing nothing, because in secrecy they are all working on a plan that is now the name of the NWO, or simply OWN, aka Zionism. OWN is actually the correct pronunciation of the word we know as ON. ON was OWN's the main deity worshipped in Babylon and Heliopolis. The ON has embedded itself so deep into our words we find when we need a light we must turn it ON, thus a false light is created. All units of energy contain the word ON in it because ON is a type of power for the elite, for example neutron, proton, electron, tachyon, and argon, to name only a few. The real mind control is people are not dealing with their spiritual condition, they are holding on to spiritual beliefs that they in fact live contrary to every day. Many spiritual beliefs contradict each other all in the same book, and since the subconscious mind has picked this up by more of intuition, it is generally not dedicated to religion, while the conscious mind, which becomes diseased by the ego, is. Thus it will play church just to say that it is better than most and will be saved by the God when he returns. 179 PAGE. Reason 135. Contrary to what most people believe, Jewish holy men do not support Zionism. They recognize it as an infesting plague rotting away the morals and culture of the 12 tribes. However, they are not part of the Israeli political party, so their words are not heard. In Genesis chapter 3 it says, "And then the sons of God, plural, saw the daughters of women." Since it is clearly indicated that there is more than one Son of God, why does the New Testament insist all of a sudden that there is only one Son? Not to mention in the book of Hebrews located in the New Testament it even says that Jesus was from the order of Melchizedek, the priests of Harwelion, also indicating that he was an initiate and not even the most powerful of his order. These Melchizedeks led directly to Sirius. The Melchizedeks have always been involved in the deeper esoteric course of our future. Those who have come into the spotlight representing the Melchizedeks have always been on a higher spiritual level, bringing portents of an impending visitation by the Syrians and the Anunnaki. The two men of our time openly representing the Melchizedeks are Dwinvalo Melchizedeks and Dr. Malachi Z. York. The former is still conducting deep initiations in Peru, last time I checked, and the later is jailed in Denver, Colorado Supermax for 140 years for several counts of child molestation, which I know for a fact he committed. It took the FBI 30 years to find that out, but they can catch a bootlegger in a minute. It is clear the extraterrestrial card is about to be played. There are several documents about a future staged invasion by the beings that have already been here that are not humanoid. Basically it seems the unseen hand wants to step a little from the shadows for the next phase of their plan. The arrivals will serve to unite the world under one common enemy, the aliens. This will bring about various systems that will ensure everyone remains safe, traceable, and immune to foreign viruses through vaccine. Just recently the swine flu scare made millions go and get injected with not only a foreign virus but whatever else is in the vaccine. One should be very careful of these types of scares that force you to go and get vaccinated because of fear of catching the disease. In the vaccination there 180 PAGE are mind, DNA, and health-altering drugs that will have various effects as we continue into the new age. Reason 136 The Melchizedeks are similar to the Levite priesthood over taking care of the personal needs of the unseen one. When they manifest into flesh they are always carrying out a main agenda and their information tends to be several cuts above the rest. Dwinvalo states that we should expect the Syrians to begin returning by the end of this year. Malachi York was one of the first men to bring information of Nibiru. Dr. York introduced the religion Norabu to the world, thus bringing light to the whole Sumerian need of Anu, a great misguidance to African Americans. When one takes a look at the Bible in the Old Testament you are immediately confronted with a God who demands large sacrifices of animals. Still many fail to make the connection that animal sacrifice is black magic. Those closely involved in the inner order tend to have dark characteristics because they must participate in these senseless sacrifices of cruelty. I noticed even in the Islamic faith an animal must be sacrificed during weddings, holidays, and various occasions. Why do we continue such practices? The ancient law even says if it can run from you don't eat it, look upon it, can it feel pain, now see yourself taste death. The Creator made many things for man and woman to marvel and cherish so their character may be pleasing and entertaining to you. 181 PAGE. Now would be the time to get to the root of where much of the power of the Zionist movement lies. That becomes as easy as looking at the name Solomon to see how all this connects. When the works of Solomon were introduced it involved the evoking of demons. The more popular book is The Keys to Solomon, removed from his sepulchre. Solomon himself proclaims in the Bible that he built the temple with the assistance of demons in which he had subdued and put under control with a ring that was given to him by the God of the Bible. Sol is Latin for the sun, Om is Sanskrit for the alternate sun, and On is Sumerian Babylonian for Ons. Many adepts learn that the name is a sign of collaboration between three different brotherhoods that decided to combine forces and knowledge to achieve complete dominance over the world. Solomon brought it all together. Solomon not only wandered after Ashtoreth, he also sacrificed once a year to Bel. Jewish works further claim that Solomon was rebuked for doing these things but was absolved nonetheless. While Solomon was ruler, kings and wise men came from all over just to hear his words and see his accomplishments. Thus many were induced into a deeper version of mysticism that involved commanding the lower genii. When one thinks the solar deities are the evil ones and the moon deities are the nice ones, they still haven't gotten the picture. All of these energies seek to master what will serve them, oftentimes by fooling the worshipper into actually believing they are in control. As I was told by someone very wise, demons are strong enough to hurl men far lengths, they are not your companions and you cannot trust them. They are jealous and seek respite until the day if you but knew. Satan said he was made of smokeless fire, stronger than flesh, thus he would not be a friend to man. Failing to realize we are created in the image of the Most High showed he lacked reason and was deluded by pride, so we stripped him of his jewels and his beauty and placed him in the darkness. Indeed, we were made aware that when trying to duplicate the power of our Most High Majesty, the impostor Nakash pointed all the people who found themselves not sure of their origin, to the direction of a dying sun who was Shamash, called also Samul. Yes, it was the dismal light which proclaims itself as sustainer of this earth and rises every morning in full 90 degrees. This faint hue the uncounted perceived as the splendid one, incessantly wanting to make their God visible and not seeking sensibility and reason. Even great Egypt was caught worshipping only what they perceived in clear view. Impatient they were and they failed utterly, trapped in the world of no return, thus they beckon others to join them in misery. They're still known by the wise and chaste to be misguided death dealers, residing even now by ritual and pact in the lowest places. Their abode is nothingness, they are leeches of life and feast on those who are misled into the wants of material matter. Just as always, the female role is kept secret. It was actually Saba Sheba, who is Balkis, who taught Solomon the wisdom of the stars. Saba actually means star or seven, thus the seven stars or Pleiades. The Quran tells of a people called the Sabians who would make good converts. I found that Saba was more of an energy like Sothis, and not an actual woman. Sheba was a temple in Ethiopia, not a physical queen. The physical queen of the time was Magda, who had as her consort the converted eunuch, 182 Page. Candace, who commanded elephants. The elephant was a sacred deity in Ethiopia. They have many temples to commemorate the elephant, although all books say the meaning of these temples have been lost. The ancient elephant is called mastodon. This is where our word master comes from. This is like the woolly mammoth-looking elephant. Even hearing the name Magda brings Oprah Winfrey's movie The Color Purple to mind. In the movie, when they go back to Africa, they are singing this song, "Ain't no ocean, ain't no seas, Magda dad can keep my sister away from me, Magda dad." This was sung while a bloodletting ritual and scarring was taking place. There is nothing new under the sun. Now that information portals are opening, it is much easier to connect the dots and see that we have been lied to profusely since day one. This should be enough for one to realize they cannot trust what others say and must investigate it for themselves. Everything that I bring forth I can prove, even at times down to the quantum level. Those who are at the head of many religious circles are pushing propaganda that they cannot validate the origin of, thus everyone is told to have blind faith. If my charge is allowed to continue, it will be amazing to watch them attempt to answer questions about their connections with what you have seen so far. Now is the time media such as MySpace, Facebook, YouTube, SCRIBD, and various other free information channels can be exploited to actually reverse their otherwise useless brain hijacking effects. Once information like this begins to leak, there are others who are the siblings, spouses, and workers of various individuals they will now know are affiliated with spiritual corruption. When they figure out they have been used and lied to, they will begin releasing information that could have never been obtained by any other means, such as a master's copy of a high initiate's protocols that may have been kept in the private possession of the family of a long-deceased master mason. As I said before, we are hacking Morpheus and soon he will tell us everything. Their devilish doings will bring forth their ruin just in time for the cosmic showdown. 183 Page. Reason 137. This temple of Sheba is actually below ground. Nubia became Lower Egypt, maintaining the pantheism of the pharaohs even when it was lost to the common world. Solomon, who was clearly of Hebrew descent, entreated Balkis to give him the wisdom of the stars and the doctrines of the underworld. With these instructions, what is now modern Christianity was given more form. The Ethiopic books of the Bible predated all other works. The Ethiopic books became the main resource for writing many versions of the Bible in other languages. The most recent story of the death and resurrection seems to be plagiarized from their books of another Savior and his Virgin Mother who was black. Mary and Jesus are modeled after them. Oprah Winfrey we know to be initiated. Not only did she endorse Barack Obama, which gave him the edge over MC Kane, she also has an entertainment company called Harpo, which is her name backwards. This is known as backwards magic. Horus is the Christ-like savior of Egypt in which Barack emulates. Horus is also called Harpocrates. In Chicago, where Oprah and Obama both hail from, they have the famous L, or EL train. This train runs across the ley lines of Chicago in some type of sonic pattern. Obviously this book will have to expand out into other editions where I can detail more of what's going on. The more I write, the more I see how much has to be written. However, something must get to the people now. I want the reader to know that even if some of this seems hazy now, just keep with it and you will see the pieces connect. I'm not telling you anything but what has been unveiled to me. With that being said, I'm intentionally cutting the book short and we will call this the first edition. Several mind control triggers were used when the elite made the moves to make Barack Obama president. In several movies that made it to the box office before Barack came into the spotlight, they showed the President of the United States as an African American. Those movies were made to be favorable box office hits and the viewer was then set in the fertile soil for the future move. This way it almost seems like it already happened when the actual scenario starts to take place. This makes people more comfortable in thinking it was their idea. Many of these types of methods were 184 PAGE. Learned from German mind control scientists and were put to the test in the CIA's Project MKultura. Their work on compartmentalizing the brain was phenomenally riveting. Reason 138. This is how suggestive mind control works. The dream poster was to trigger the feeling of Martin Luther King Jr. getting African Americans to believe that they would finally be treated with justice when Barack came into office. Since African Americans don't generally vote, not believing in such nonsense as politics, this time they showed up at the polls, which caused the Republican Party, who always vote, to be outnumbered. Although they could always just cheat and rig the vote, it is better when it is a conscious decision by the people. This way a pact or agreement is made, thus the outcome will be entirely the fault of the voter for participating in the election. As also seen here, they prepped everyone first through the media for the African American president, who is really an incarnate of pharaonic energy. We will discuss briefly a topic that is way out of the box, my hangout. Since the inner core of these societies have mastered death and resurrection, they know how to reincarnate into this world again and assume various roles of leadership. Below I'm showing profound proof of this. Remember, 185 PAGE. Many people were lured into these occult circles by the promise of consecutive lives. I believe for some that promise was kept due to their particular position on the pyramid. I doubt that those on the bottom of the pyramid enjoyed such mystical prestige. Let us look at those who may be closer to the top of the pyramid. Reason 139. Once you hear real truth, it's much stranger than fiction. When addressing the nation from the White House, Obama will stand in a pyramid which will be on the floor below the podium, traced in gold. In the magic evocation of entities, the apparition will appear in the triangle drawn by the magician. If the magician stands in the triangle, he becomes the vessel for the apparition to communicate through. For a novice, standing inside the triangle can result in death, as the spirits that are not trained, then tamed, will tear apart the magician. The adept strikes fear in the heart of the spirits by having in their possession certain things such as daggers, swords, jewels, crooks, rings, herbs, and various other consecrated magical items designed for such purposes. Some of the secret organizations were known to possess the secret of bringing one back in contact with their double. This was of the greatest value because it gave the initiate the natural powers associated with being completely balanced and assembled or remembered. This also took place in the pyramid while lying in the sarcophagus. This also gives the initiate the ability to sing, dance, and act. 186 PAGE. to an amazing degree of perfection, since they are now using the side associated with perfect articulation and true genius. Those who are still split marvel at the accomplishments of these people and become fans, groupies, gopi, and worshippers of these false idols who use the secret to their advantage. 187 PAGE. Reason 140. In my studies into the occult, there can be only two explanations for this type of doppelganger effect. Either the same spirit has possessed the same individuals that look similar to each other, as strong spirits are known to change the facial appearance and sometimes bodily features of the host. Or they have actually pulled their doppelgangers from the parallel and are living double lives. Both of these scenarios can be accomplished by a very skilled adept. In each photo there are two different people. When King Nebuchadnezzar entered Jerusalem, he set the Temple of Solomon on fire. When asked about it, he said he was carrying out the will of Marduk. This would solve one of the biggest issues we face with deciphering who is on what side, because this shows that although both of these sects appeared to worship the sun, planets, and serpents, it is in all actuality some worship serpents, and others amphibians. Still others worship the horn gods like the Ram, Ramses, Ra, Mindas, Tet, etc. The Bible says that the dragon had several heads and they began to devour one another until two remained. Of course, we find the tales of Solomon in much of the Hebraic law and in the Masonic rites, in which they confess that Solomon was the first master mason. The temple itself was known as the Double Square. When locating the ancient depictions of the real Solomon, which are very hard to locate, I came across two, one by the Russians, and the other by the Rastafarians. Solomon is depicted in both the motif and the basque relief as half man, half reptilian or amphibian. Religions like Islam, Catholicism, Christianity, and Judaism all support and defend Solomon as the wisest king, so it is better to throw them all in the bag together. When reading works like the Testament of Solomon, which details his dealings with nefarious demons who are made to confess their crimes and then put in service of building the temple, it becomes obvious all who studied the Gnostic doctrines of these groups became magicians, wizards, called then wizard, and various other types of mystics. 188 PAGE. Once Israel subdues the complete portion of the Promised Land, it fulfills a much-awaited prophecy, which is obtaining all the land that was originally promised to them by the God of the Bible. It becomes obvious that the God of the Bible promotes the Israelites to kill in order to obtain what clearly belonged to someone else before they invaded. This becomes no different than what the so-called founding father of the Americas did to the indigenous that were there first. Even the Hebrew Book of Light states that the children of Israel who wandered around the wilderness and never made it to the Promised Land were those who found favor with the true God. Thus they gained an attachment to the wilderness and nature versus a city flowing with milk and honey. Milk and honey were just symbolism for the cow and the bee, the two animals sacred to the Egyptians. We now see returning to the Promised Land was more like becoming the Egyptians for the Hebrews based upon the way they are ruling now. There is absolutely no excuse for such barbaric behavior unless of course you are serving a bloodthirsty deity, which brings up the point again about sacrifice. How can it escape a person's judgment that if something is asking you to slaughter thousands of cattle and various other animals into a huge furnace of fire, it could possibly not be something negative? Putting yourself in the moment is key. Throwing a living cow in a furnace 10 times heated would sound horrible. Just think of thousands of them back to back mooing to the moon like crazy. This would not smell like the drive-thru at Burger King since the fur was not removed. Some will say, well, Jesus did away with animal sacrifice, and I will say, so we moved on to child sacrifice? This God now tells his so-called only son to sacrifice himself? No parent in their right mind would participate in such demonic activity, thus many in history not in their right mind did. This is the drawback of only using your left mind. This does not come up only once but at least twice in the modern Bible, where Abraham is also told to sacrifice Isaac, paying no mind to the strict rules against child sacrifice in the Bible. For the God to even use this as some test seems unethical and hypocritical. The behavior of an individual will ultimately determine what they are about, so through treachery and subterfuge the world has been set in array. Once the prophecy is fulfilled of Greater Israel, it indicates it will be time for their next move, which is to rebuild the third Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem using the demons again, of course. The New Jerusalem is spoken of in Revelations coming down from the sky, and that cannot be fulfilled until the third temple is complete. What remains of the last Temple of Solomon in Jerusalem is only the Wailing Wall, which is why the Zionists are so fond of it. Obama was even instructed to pay a trip to it, Yarmouk and all. The proposed location of the new temple is where the Dome of the Rock, a sacred Islamic mosque, sits now. It is known that if something happens to the Dome of the Rock, Muslims beyond number will become extremely violent and spread real terror upon the earth such as it has never been seen. 189 PAGE. Reason 141. The Zionist, who are now making rules as they go, intend to rebuild the final Temple of Jerusalem. If this temple is allowed to be completed, it marks the end of this world as we know it. This of course is in the prophecy that has so far been correct up until this very moment. All that is left is to remove the Dome of the Rock. This becomes the ultimate setup for the humans by these bloodthirsty deities. The Islamic prophecy reads that when the Mahdi returns, he must have his feast in the Dome of the Rock before he emancipates the Muslims. The Muslims are charged with making sure the Dome of the Rock is available at all times just in case he returns. On the flip side, unless the Dome of the Rock is removed and the Temple of Solomon rebuilt, New Jerusalem cannot descend from the mount. This of course the Zionist will not stand for, and neither will the Muslims. So this equals a no-win situation for these two brothers who have been fighting forever, and the clock is ticking down for them both. They have also dragged everyone else into their battle through religion, although they refuse to give the masses the full details of what took place on Tiamat, the enemy of Mudjik. So let us look closer at the similarities of these faiths to see that this has gone far beyond belief in the Most High and is about domination, destruction, and chaos. Do keep in mind this is all an inside job, and the people that war with each other are the sacrifice. 190 PAGE. Reason 142. The Dome of the Rock. This is the most sensitive spot in the world. If it's touched, it will be like getting into a small box with thousands of queen hornets who are protecting their larvae. Many Muslims have lost the focal point. Their language was one of the first codes to the Matrix, so they face a different matter that the Most High will have to deal with personally. I will just say, when one is wise and ready to grow, they will be flexible like a reed, thus they will bend a little for inner standing. This is growth. If one is brittle, they will break the moment something comes that blows surprise towards them, thus in a world full of surprises they do not fare well and the experience eludes them. I know this because I was the most brittle, and the Most High soaked me first so that I would not break under the truth, which is heavy for man and woman and must be given in stages. On this ladder there are those who are coming up and those who are going down. They now use Eliv waters, so if the guided do not rally behind the one with the idea which comes before the name, then they will not see Abad eternity, without end, and may find their companions in the fire, which is purification. I'm just an agent myself, dictating faithfully what has been revealed to me by the Most High, who controls all things and which all must draw their substance, as all expect to take their next breath but see it not before it goes into the body. First off, the Temple of Solomon has already been reconstructed, and I will show you two of them, although many more exist. They serve as portals. The wormhole, amongst many things, allows a person to travel anywhere on Earth in an instant. Not just anyone can travel through the wormhole. The auric field of the person has to be enhanced. It is said the elements on the wall of the wormhole dissolve anything they come in contact with that is not geometrically configured properly. This is necessary to disassemble and reassemble the atoms in perfect form. The common worshippers told the temple it yet to be rebuilt. What a hoax! One of those temples is the Roslyn Chapel and the other is in Winnipeg, Manitoba, the heart connection of Canada and North America. In sacred geometry, a double square makes 8 points, thus linking the double square to the 8-pointed star of Allah. The Roslyn Chapel, founded by Sir William St. Clair, called Sinclair Prodigies Knight of the Cockle and Golden Fleece, changed their name to Roskiln, which later became Roslyn, Sir Henry, and Pentland. This is also the lineage of Sir William, the first Grand Master Mason of Scotland. The chapel contains 22 Masonic marks. The rights of Master Mason was granted to William, 191 PAGE. By King James II, the two were great friends. This family became so famous and respected they were even allowed to coin money. Passing 3 times around the limestone or boundary stone of Rosslyn was known to grant whoever was allowed to do it, unique abilities. The temple was always guarded to prevent anyone from doing this without the leave of the hierarchy until the chalice was removed. The temple was a great resort for gypsies who ever inhabited the place, and the physical Holy Grail was stored for some time in the chapel until it became unsafe and had to be moved. Reason 143. Most are uninvited to the hyperdimensional party. How I see it is the Earth is near its regeneration cycle, just like after the close of Atlantis and Lemuria, when the Earth lay dormant on the surface for thousands of years before it could be habitable again. The elite are only taking care of their own, thus a few must come together and make a bridge to higher planes or get left behind. 192 PAGE. The Muslims and Jews bear witness that Abraham was their father and all races descend from him, which I pointed out earlier is absurd. I found the stories of Abraham and Sarah to be none other than the stories of Ab, meaning father, and Braham, a Brahmin. Brahman and his wife Saraswati can also be found in the Hindu Puranas, which is much older than the Bible and of course the Quran. The Brahmins were a group of beings that leaned more toward the masculine side and may be some of the first sun worshippers, themselves being sons of the sun, which meant endowed with discovered immortality. This also means they have completed a succession of incarnations in which they know of their previous existence and are continuing their cycle of ethereal development. Beings that are aware of this are far more advanced than those who cannot remember past lives. Imagine what another 100 years of memory would do for your perspective of things. The Bible's composition itself is a hodgepodge of several ancient books and powerful works accomplished by various individuals, especially of Sumerian origin, all combined in one final novel next to the Quran. Both of these books say pretty much the same thing. The Quran is a book of repetition, repeating the same poetic words over and over in various ways about the penalties for not serving Allah. It pretty much boils down to being completely obliterated by fire and demons that rip the flesh apart, then brought back to life, and obliterated again for the sake of the pain. This is to take place for an eternity. Talking about scare tactics. Other penalties for sins are described in such ghastly detail the believer is generally in fear of Allah. Both religions maintain they have delivered the final book, and all other books that do not bear witness should not be entertained by the believer. The Quran bears witness to the Old Testament and what it calls the Injil, which is the New Testament, as being authentic works of the same God, thus welling the two faiths together even tighter. Both books claim to be storehouses of numeric and alphanumeric codes in which only those who are trained in Kabbalah or Abjad can decipher. I read the Bible 3 times from cover to cover, and it was only until the 3rd time that the book unlocked. One must agree that most Christians have never read the complete Bible. They may have come close, but skip books like Leviticus and Numbers. In these books there is lengthy detailing of numbers, especially in the section concerning the building of the temple. All these numbers are actually the codes that can be deciphered to bring forth immense amounts of Gnostic information. All letters in Hebrew double as numbers, so the numbers actually spell words. Those words were the names of various energies related to controlling whatever was being discussed in that particular scripture in some symbolic way. For example, if it was 13 bushels of wheat, whatever that translated to in Hebrew was the god or goddess of wheat, let's say is. Furthermore, it should not escape the reader's attention that the priests of this time had to be from the tribe of Levi. Levi is also an anagram for evil, which makes even more sense when you consider the role of the Leviathan that seems to be playing a heavy role in controlling our mind, especially while asleep. Leviathan is said to also be Cthulhu. This name Levi given to the priests called in Hebrew Cohen, 193 PAGE. Another anagram for Enoch. Can't get any more obvious, but as the yogis say, people are sleepwalking in an illusion. The Spanish word noche, which is night, is also an anagram for Enoch. 194 PAGE. Reason 144. There are in fact several arks constructed for the purpose of keeping items sacred to the deity. There was the Ark of the Covenant, the Ark of Ra, the Ark of Mary and numerous others. The word arch means bow or a vessel such as Noah's Ark, thus the original arks were used as crafts. Contact could also be accomplished by these devices through transport, hologram, or wormhole. Just as we upgrade constantly, these beings have upgraded also. Imagine the difference in a Cessna and a stealth bomber. The dispute between these two nations remains partly due to the issue of the birthright that was stolen from Ishmael, although he was the eldest son. It goes on that Abraham built the first altar with the assistance of his eldest son Ishmael, who later became the father of the 12 tribes of the Arabs Ad, Samad, Jades, Tarsum etc. This altar was known as the Kaaba of Mecca. In Quran, Solomon talks to birds and even commands a jinn, Ifrit, to go and steal the throne of Queen Makeda of Ethiopia, who was said to be worshipping the sun. Solomon's gift for communicating with birds can also be compared to the highly mysterious language of the birds, which was known to be given to those who had reached higher spiritual levels and thus received instruction from angels. In certain books I've watched magician after magician stumble over the origin of this language, most saying it was bequeathed by the angels. This language is really the language of the bards, more properly known in the highest circles as Skaldskaparmal. This is said to be the language spoken before the confusion at the Tower of Babel. The knowledge of this language bequeaths the possessor with the ability to communicate with all animals. The original bards were half man, half bird, just like you see in Reason 131. Because they, 195 PAGE, had wings, they became easily associated with angels, but they are the fallen ones, the beginning and end of our troubles. When studying Islam, I noticed certain inconsistencies right away. The main one being the story concerning the intelligence level of Prophet Muhammad. It is said that Muhammad could neither read nor write, and this put special emphasis on the miracle, the Quran, purported to be given to him by the angel Gabriel. After all, it lends a lot more credibility if a man who can neither read nor write all of a sudden appears with one of the greatest spiritual works of the time, rich in poetic meaning and spiritual dialogue. The original book was said to be numerically equivalent to the number 19 and was never translated into the vulgar languages. This book remains protected by the Sudanese till this day. Many anomalies exist within the book itself, like all the chapters when added up produce a number divisible by the number 19. How many times Allah is mentioned in the whole Quran that number is divisible by 19? The first chapter Al-Fatiha, when said correctly, causes the tongue to touch the roof of the mouth 19 times. It exceeds a normal person's capability after a while to keep the consistencies of 19s going. Even our modern computers could not do it, since a story is also unfolding while the perfect numbers roll in place. This became the sign of the Muslims that Muhammad was guided and in contact with the great deity Allah through his host the angel Gabriel. The angel Gabriel is known to be the of the moon Gabriel. It seems where most of the scholars and spiritual leaders of today get lost is thinking that these religions are so separate. Also in question is the mandatory ceremony of Eidgah established by Muhammad himself, which consists of a sacrifice to Allah in the name of the child, 2 he-goats for a boy, and 1 he-goat for a girl. This incantation must be said during the sacrifice and feast. O Allah, I offer to thee instead of my own offspring life for life, blood for blood, head for head, bone for bone, hair for hair, and skin for skin. In the name of the great Allah, I do sacrifice this goat. Why does it appear that Allah would even want a child to be sacrificed, and something must expiate that? This is something that continues to reoccur in the history of man's involvement with these gods. All of this, I believe, shows the reasoning of mankind is deluded. Even the people who are said to be the most devout in purity. If there is a God that wants us to sacrifice our children to him, then we have a war at hand. I'm saying this after millions of children have already been sacrificed and thousands continue to disappear. Who will face this foe? Bomar has fastened his armor, and who will join him? In Islam it says that Muhammad married Khadija, who was a rich businesswoman who chose Muhammad to run all of her business dealings because he was a whiz with numbers. This begins to shake the foundation of Muhammad being illiterate, seeing that if he knew how to add and subtract he also knew how to read and write. Remember, Arabic also has the same letters for numbers. There was no doubt two Muhammads existed during that time. One was teaching pure monotheism and the other was an invention of a man named Muslimat, a political leader who saw the charisma of the real, 196 PAGE. Muhammad and attempted to entice him to be a political leader. Muhammad, they said, would have no of it, so Muslimat became his sworn enemy, ultimately succeeding in getting Muhammad poisoned. Or was it the other Muhammad? Do you think they could poison the guided? Did they not say we could drink the poison of vipers and it would have no effect? We are not the body, it is only the vehicle to traverse this dimension, and it is sluggish and moveth about like a square wheel going uphill. The Kaaba itself in history was used at various times for idol worship, although it is said that Muhammad came to do away with such things. The Kaaba had been destroyed several times by razes, fires, and natural causes through history. On those occasions it was always men from Egypt of high nobility who paid to rebuild it. The connection between Egypt and the Kaaba is very heavy. It is known better as the shrine, and has been an object of veneration for hundreds of years. Laws exist such as if you walk around it 70 times all your sins are forgiven, if you pray in special section you get a better position in paradise. As children these stories can be fascinating, but as adults we should know better. No amount of times walking around the cube will expiate you from wrongdoing. Life itself is the biggest example of that. Things are taken at times from the Kaaba and sold, like the water from the well of Zemzem and dust from the covering. Reason 145. A great deal of illumination came from the Arabs and their affiliations with the genies and jinns, called also in Hindu, Jan meaning devils. The religions of the world all connect, and it is only the blinded that held fast to their faith while talking about another. The true belief is internal. Pictured here Ilah al-Ilahu. The Muslims are forbidden to carve images of the god for purposes of secrecy and sanctity. They used designs in their rich language to express what they viewed. Notice the swastika on the medallion. We see the same thing with Rail. Are you beginning to see that the inner circle is not as separate as they claim? It is the people who are divided defending the gods as if they need the protection of man, offering to them as if they eat food and spend money. 197 PAGE. Reason 146. There is no doubt that the Kaaba itself is on a major ley line. Islam contains so many sects from Sunni, Shiite, Sufi, Ahab, etc. Its inner circle of mysticism remains unable to be included in the general religion itself. By this I mean the Arab world abounds with sorcery, and many such practices. However, it is easy to pin that on the individual, not the believer, since the Quran forbids such things. I believe one of the four gates of the world to be contained here. The belief in one God is also found in this faith. However, I question if the one God has a 5-letter name that is tossed about before acts of vengeance. Likewise, the sacrifices are senseless and should be treated as such. One of the most sacred parts of the Kaaba is the stone jewel placed in the corner as seen above. In another more detailed account of jewels falling from the sky, Lucifer in legend was struck by the great angel so hard it knocked the jewels out of his crown and they fell to earth, and those who, 198 PAGE, recovered them were said to gain magical powers. This does sound a little more like a campfire tale. However, there are 12 known synergy crystals that are said to enhance the human ability. They are Moldavite, Danbrit, Tanzanite, Azazchilite, Phenacite, Herderite, Tibetan Tektite, Satyaloka quartz, Pedalite, Brookite, Naturalite, and Scholasite. Most of these stones are meteorites that have fallen from space throughout time. Whether they came out of the crowns of angels could be metaphoric. They are made of foreign elements hardened into glass while entering our atmosphere. In Catholicism there are 4 great angels: Michael, Gabriel, Raphael, and Uriel, of whom the latter is sometimes swapped for other angels, but at least the other 3 stay the same. If you go to a Baptist church they will assure you they have nothing in common with Catholicism, yet when the main prayers are taking place the names of the angels are sometimes mentioned and they are of course the same. In Islam the same thing happens, and even in the New Age movement one often receives emails from someone who has channeled the Archangel Michael, who sends light into the grid as we make our transcendence into the beyond and all that mumbo jumbo. So what does this tell you? It's obvious that if the main workers for the religions have remained the same, then all of the religions are in some way linked to the same source. Even deeper you will find that the name Michael means one who is like God. If I remember correctly, there was only one who pretended he was like the Most High, and we held him from space. Some may believe this is a stretch to advocate that Michael may be a fallen angel. However, let us think again where the term angel really comes from. Reason 147. This is a well-known painting of the angel Gabriel and Muhammad that has survived since antiquity. It strikes me as odd that Gabriel has black wings, which signifies a fallen angel. In addition to this, in several texts many men who went to the east to become mystics say that Baphomet and Muhammad were the same being and were worshipped in mystic Islam. A Muslim would call such statements sacrilegious. However, Baphomet also has black wings. It seems that all the old religions are tied to horn gods some way or another. The Age of Ram. 199 PAGE. First off, it should be mentioned that in the Hebrew doctrines they classify their angelic beings as Aralim, Chsmalim, Aphanim, Malatrim, Sheath HaKadosh, etc. This means they do not group all their spirit forces together and just call them all angels. In fact, the term is foreign to them. This is because in encountering these beings through evocation, the magicians and Kabbalists learned that many of them were very different from the others, so they categorized them as such. Again, the term angel comes from the word angel. It appears only fallen angels respond when evoked. In other writings it says many tribes wandered after what they called the Chaldean Baalim, although it has not been determined that all the IMs mentioned above can be grouped under that one title. It seems highly possible. In other cultures angels are given names such as Sukalin and Amshir Spenters. The main concern is the actual uses given for these beings. It describes that some reveal treasure, some make women fall in love with you, some give you amnesty, etc. I would highly consider again, why would a high vibration being want to grant a human undeserved favors just because they knew how to do a ritual? There is of course much more at stake when entering into leagues with these types of spirits, and most have unleashed a never-ending karmic seesaw for tampering with spiritual forces for selfish means. Reason 148. Since their plans have reached completion, they are now prepared to tell the world bluntly about their involvement with angels, demons, Baalim, Gregory, Nephilim, Rephaim, and who knows what else. We can assume there are always things that will not be talked about until they happen, just as it's never good to tell anyone your desires before they come to pass. Be watchful of these watchers. Some things I have put direct emphasis on and may have been a little repetitive. I have done this on purpose so that it may stick with you. Spirituality and science as a couple have first birthed monsters, just as Cain was the first child of Adam and Eve. It is these monsters that have become very strong thought forms, moving about on their own will and totally uncontrollable by those who originally brought them forth. We have been given the task of removing them. Intel has now released its Nehalem Nepalim computer chip. 200 PAGE. The geometry which has now been placed over our Earth grid through crop circles created by sound devices like the HAAP, have allowed the elite to erect a new grid which has been termed the Earth Consciousness Grid. This keeps humans somewhat trapped in the matrix until they learn the methods of building up strength to break out. As you see, they call the new system the Internet or internal net. The biggest hint is the Ethernet cable. Why is it given such a name? Ether itself means spirit, so why is a term like that being used in comparison to computers? Since the ozone layer is melting, there is no telling what the potential is if it's dissolved. Favor is often disguised as misfortune. Reason 149. These shapes are created by advanced sound devices used by the elite to place frequencies into the Earth grid. Those frequencies affect health, mentality, belief, etc. When really studying these designs in sacred geometry, we find them to be insignias and logos of the dark side, designs caused by extremely low frequencies or ELFs. Research Clan D plates. 201 PAGE. Reason 150. It becomes obvious that crop circles are not created by benevolent alien forces from space trying to communicate to us. They are created by the same hyperdimensional tricksters that plague our planet and continue to fool us with their lies and godlike technology. After examining the two faiths of Islam and Judaism, it became obvious the one was holding the power of an older god from the age of the ram, the other the power of the lion and the serpent. Getting all the details becomes burdensome as many lies are woven in with the truth to discredit the other side, much like the modern Republican and Democrat candidate scenario. This becomes the power one has over you once they can tell you what happened in the past and you have no way of proving it. They even tell a person how long a second is, thus what time it is. That type of control is mind control in its purest degree, very hard to notice due to its subtlety and necessity. Reason 151. The elite are playing mind games on a stage, wasting our time. They will assume any role to sway opinions as necessary, and this is master chess with an occasional gambit. Lincoln. 202 PAGE. This false light that has come to the world has deceived many. It is the same false light that says it has come to illuminate those who are humble and worship it. Light in the Latin is lux, named after Lucifer, the bright morning star of Venus. The strategy they are using is to give you two choices in which both are no good. The word democratic taking its root from the Arabic word demos or demon, and republican taking its root from the word reptile or refame. So the choice is reptiles or demons you choose. To prove this, one simply has to note how many times leaders and presidents have been photographed making the sign of Baphomet, the goat god of Mendes. Due to bloodlines of the presidents of the US having Merovingian origin, they are definitely blue-blood reptilian hybrids walking around the White House and Parliament hailing from the Orion constellation, Venus, Agata, Mars, Vulcan and who knows where else. Ruling over us, pretending they are like us. This is why they continue with this bloodbath with the slightest show of regret or resolution. I'm sure many reading this are familiar with David Icke's work, so it is unnecessary to reiterate what he has been explaining for years in detail, thus I have been mainly covering how the blending took place. Reason 152. Here is what commonly happens. Because the light cannot comprehend the darkness, many who do not have such strong evil inclinations refuse to believe anyone, especially their leaders who have such charisma, could be involved in such a vile plot of enslaving humanity. The recent Zeitgeist movie, obviously directed by the elite, shifts the blame of our current world state on the byproduct of humanity making the wrong decisions in regards to how the planet is preserved, thus their solution is the Venus Project. Anything related to Venus you will find the Dark Lord in the midst of. This is why it gives you power to know such things, so you cannot be easily fooled as the masses often are. The same companies that were talked about on the first Zeitgeist were those who funded it. They have no shame in admitting that. Highlight the problem, provide a solution. 203 PAGE. First off, the term itself is animist. An animist is a person that emulates, worships, and sometimes mates with animals in order to gain the ability of the particular animal. In Africa there was no limit to how many tribes were animist, and much of the information on how to do such things come from Africa. The ancients played a dot-to-dot with the stars in the heavens, making animal outlines in the constellations based on the energy they felt was emitting from the stars. One of the main tribes known to do this were the Nubians from the Temple of Sheba discussed earlier. It is true the actual Garden of Eden was somewhere in Kush, the lush land of Nubia where the four rivers flowed, and the Queen of the South was in position as ruler over the Horn of Africa. Remember, Nubia had all the gold mines that made the pharaohs rich beyond their imaginations, that is of course when they could subdue it and collect tribute. The Nubians proved to be a challenge, as the annuals record lengthy wars between the Nubians and Egypt. Even Alexander the Great, the legendary two-horn, known by the Arabs as Dul-Qurnayn, who built the wall to keep the hordes away from the Holy Land, was turned back at Nubia when faced with Candace commanding elephants in legions for war. This, I believe, fueled much of the animosity between the Europeans and the darker Nubians, which they later enslaved and dragged the Americas. In the end, Nubia took over Egypt completely right around the time it was due to crumble anyway, just as Obama has taken over the U.S. The Nubians later inherited the new version of Christianity by missionaries infesting their country. It is said in Arabian prophecy that the Nubians will rise again and destroy the Kaaba and it will never be restored. Ethiopia has ether as its root. The people have smooth dark beautiful skin, silky hair, and lulling eyes. The first stories of the serpent who were called nagas, were in Nubia first and then they migrated to Persia. They are called by the Nubians Negusi, which is a well-respected last name in their country till this day. Reason 153 The naga are more in the image of the serpents described in Japan and China rather than bipedal hybrids. As I said before, the serpent races are as vast as our own, possibly a lot more diverse. It is clear man has inhabited this planet, along with the serpents for thousands of years intermingling. We easily forget the dinosaurs. Will there ever be a truce? 204 PAGE. Walt Disney put so much work and emphasis on animation because he was deeply involved in creating the framework for the new wave of animalistic mind control that began on a person as a child. Let us examine one story of the biggest cartoon maker in history, Walt Disney. The story itself begins before Walt Disney steps on the scene but has to do with a certain man that Walt Disney was well acquainted with. This man grew up in Russia during hard times. In order for one to even seek the audience of the Queen or the royal court in these times, you had to discover something exceptionally useful for the empire. If you were not of wealthy stock, this was the only way to turn around an otherwise miserable life for you and your family as the Black Plague swept over the land. This gentleman deemed he would do it through the occult, and soon enough he discovered what was later called phantasmagoria with the tagline optical illusions and mechanical works of art. 205 PAGE. Reason 155 People are made to believe Disney was a big kid like we all wished to be, playing in a fantasy world of castles of medieval lore with dragons, princesses, and talking mice. Disney, along with other very sick men, positioned themselves to be the corruptors of the innocent youth. The fantasy world of Disney was the fantasy of a satanic pedophile that we all had to visit because our parents knew no better. What you don't know can hurt you. Since I'm really in this for the children, I have a special assignment to dethrone this devil Disney. If we pull together as a people, it should be because of things like this that hurt children, no matter the color or race. He not only used pedophilic suggestive mind control techniques in his films, his organization, obviously run by the Dark Lord himself, continues to put forth mind-altering media that gets worse as time goes on. Phantasmagoria is the art of evoking demoniac spirits, which obviously Disney knew all about since he wrote Fantasia. Taking a look at that movie now with your eyes open will reveal an entirely different picture versus what you may have perceived before. In the English language, the play on the word kid is obvious. A kid is a baby goat. In the days when Phantasmagoria first began, they lacked the TV. So they accomplished it by smoke, pre-recorded sounds of actual torture, and lights. Showed above, many participants claim they had never seen or heard anything so horrifying. They could not tell if the demons were real or still a part of the light show. Of course the demons were real. On the back of many Disney titles it still contains the trademark Phantasmagoria, meaning this special art was used while making the film. Of course people thought this was incredible, becoming lovers of horror. That was all an outward scheme, and many suffered mental and spiritual damage while trenched in the frames of Wonderland. This brings us to the Gregorian chants. A long time ago it was discovered that when singing certain twisted hymnals you could actually bring the lower forms forth by sound. One would have to be a master at singing these hymns perfectly, and to this end the masters of the Gregorian chants were created. When you are listening to certain music from Gothic times always featured on the soundtracks of Disney films and many others, it is actually the Gregorian chants playing, at least in the background. Remember, Gregory is another name for the fallen angels and is actually the creature Nimrod is always seen holding in his hand. I cannot put enough emphasis on how powerful sound is and how it affects humans, animals, and even other beings. The chants have lead to possession in humans just as the serpent can be charmed with a flute. Rap is now wrapping up the mind of the youth, so their minds are so tied up they are immobilized, but not for long. Sound is also a key ability we can use. A frequency can be fired at the body, causing all shells, lower life forms, to break free from the body. It is at that moment a person knows that they were actually on them. One can never know what it is like to be clean until they are truly washed, but not in the blood of a lamb. Come on, look what they are saying. This is not just a figure of speech, the subconscious mind has to make sense of it all, and it does it literally. 206 PAGE. 207 PAGE. Reason 156. On the top left you will see the ancient Gregorian hymnal used by the Holy See, three-horned fleur-de-lis in correct position above the Venusian heart of Voodoo. There is now one group of masters of the Gregorian chants that even perform in Las Vegas. People think it sounds just like good opera. One of the four patriarchs of Catholicism was Gregory. He was with no doubt incarnate Gregory. He wrote the hymnals. Also keep in mind it was the evil Gregory who created the calendar we are on, the Gregorian solar calendar. It is also known that when the Arabs visited the Russians to see if they would pay for mystical secrets, the Russians made a large banquet for the Shah. The actual menu I will be sure to put in the second edition, if there is one. While the Shah was stuffing himself, the Russians were playing the Gregorian chants in the other room. The Shah was put into a trance also known as mesmerism, and his tongue went loose, telling them all the secrets of Arabia. It was not long after that the horde covered their land, and many fell before them. The wall could hold them no longer, its weakness revealed. As said above, many factions have come together under one roof by intermingling bloodlines. We will just call them the V. The V as a symbol is the Roman numeral 5. 5 is more properly called penta. The penton penta has the same meaning as the penton serpent. The original origin of the word pent is a feather, thus the word serpent actually means feathered snake. This also links to our main strategic defense building, the Pentagon, which still means feathered dragon snake. If you remember the movie The V, the storyline goes that some reptilian-like beings from another planet came to Earth saying they could help us with technology, but in all actuality they had come to take over our planet and enslave everyone. They did this by infiltrating the government, replacing various key people with clones until they could make willing servants of the rest. The only force opposing this was the Resistance, the name of my first website before I even knew all of what I know now. During the times of oracles, unity between the woman and the serpent was elevated and many women became worshippers of the goddess. One of the most popular was Europa, who was worshipped in Sidon. The time center of the earth the serpent wrapped itself around, they call him Ouroboros. Europa moved to the island of Crete to establish a full serpent worship and occult training center. If you don't believe this is a fact, I will tell you a secret. The word is actually secrete, which also means venom that comes from the pores, a white pus or emission. The island of Crete also contains a place known as Gnosis, and of course this is where the whole Gnosticism movement began, which is where you find more roots of the serpent. When looking at a statue of the goddess Europa, you will see her holding snakes in each hand. She is simply another part of the pyramid, and the is in Gnosis is the sign that Isis is present. Noesis Gnosis? Jesus Eosis Isis Osis Osiris Sirius. 208 PAGE. Reason 157. Indeed, old Ouroboros knows many things, but it is a deceiver trapped in the abyss of the universe and will never ascend. Here is a secret: the planetary symbols you see on the right are all the planets that are already in on the agenda. On the left you will see the cycle of life. This cycle can be moved about fast or slow, forward or reverse depending upon your intellect and intention. It is the wheel. Is it not better to be an ant when you need to eat and a mountain when you wish to rest? I will give you some advice: never serve anything that has been created and you will get far. Keep the Most High as your focal point only and you will fare well in the future. If you come to a fork in the road, go straight. I will not be with you long, already my place has been prepared, I see it, and I long for it. If I must taste death, I will dine with all courses. The word present is actually an anagram for serpent. This means that every time you say to someone I have a present for you, you are telling them you have a snake for them. This is why I became so persistent at cracking the code, because I realized that we owe our children to stand against this. Some adults will read this book, and due to the mental and physical damage that each person has been put through all their life, this work may at times fall on deaf ears, but the youth of today are clever and they sense something is up, so this lets them know. Remember, if they get our youth, we have lost our greatest result. We must free them from the loop known also as the halo. With that being said, I will explain a little of what has happened during our days as a child that has led ultimately to most not being able to perceive what is right in front of them. This of course starts as a baby, the moment that you exit the womb of your mother. While a child is in the womb, it is in all actuality seeing in 5D. The reason this is possible is due to the baby looking through the water, 209 PAGE. Bag or amniotic fluid of the mother. Anyone that has seen spirits often note that they appear more superfluous with no clear edges and at times gaseous. This is what the baby is seeing, so it becomes easy for them to recognize the mother. They are looking more at the mother's design or pattern rather than her actual physical appearance. When the child is born, the damage begins through the procedures the doctors are using. Remember that doctors are under the oath of caduceus and have sworn to uphold many things detailed in the oath that most doctors don't even understand what they really mean. It is almost like putting your right hand over your heart and pledging your allegiance to the flag. You don't really know what you just did, but that will not stop it from having an effect. What you don't know can hurt you. If the eye on a stove is on but you do not know it and put your hand on it, will it still burn you? Of course. This is by no means saying that all doctors are initiated into some serpent mystery school and intend to kill off the youth. Of course that would be extreme, but what they do has an effect, and this is its ultimate intention whether they know it or not. Those that created the backbone of the studies entailed, along with the procedures of medical care, were completely aware of what they set out to do as far as hindering the mental, physical, and spiritual growth of people seeking their help. This has been done through their constant introduction of new medicinal potions, more properly called poisons. Along the way, many practitioners notice several things that can be done much better, and some even switch to becoming naturopathic doctors. Most remain involved, and when they become doctors they simply become prescribers of medication, not healers. It becomes as easy as locating the symptom and then prescribing the drug. The drug company will be sure to let them know which drug takes care of what, along with at times free vacations if they promote the drug. I don't need to remark here about the many side effects of drugs. However, there is greater damage done to the actual chakra system of the person than anything else. For example, when a person experiences heart problems, rejuvenators know that there is some type of blockage in the heart chakra. This could be due to a lost loved one, intense stress, or various situations related to the heart. The correct healing method is to begin working on the person's heart chakra so they can get clearance. This removes the spiritual ailment from the soul, which will in turn remove the physical ailment from the body. The physical ailment itself is just another method the body uses to tell a person about a mental or spiritual problem when it is not getting a solution for it. This fact was known heavily in the mystery schools of the ancients, especially Egypt. These types of treatments free a person, however, and that is not the goal. They would rather begin to administer medicines that actually block chakra centers, giving the person a false sense of temporary relief. There are many more chakra centers than just 7, and each play a unique role. Blocking them will bring temporary relief but cause long-term damage over time. 210 PAGE. Another example is when one takes an aspirin for headaches. The aspirin tells the brain to kill the headache sensation. This does not fix the reason why the headache originally occurred. When you do this too many times, whatever was initially causing the headache will choose another center to convey the information of the problem, which could then be the stomach. So the person may begin to experience stomach aches. Then they will take something like Pepto-Bismol, which is more like a liquid aspirin that dulls the stomach's senses, blocking the chakra and not curing the original problem. This goes on and on until the person is now taking drugs for everything, which will of course increase the problem. After a while the over-the-counter drugs cease to work and the person finds they are very sick, being totally polluted by over-the-counter drugs. So they move on to stronger prescription drugs. Reason 158. Traditional Chinese medicine, reflexology, colon therapy, and several other techniques have showed Western medicine is about psychotropic mind drugs, not wellness. When a baby is born, the incandescent light located on most birth tables does extensive damage to the child's retina. This begins the process of stopping the child from naturally seeing other dimensions, thus other life forms. Full-spectrum lights are the only lights found not to cause damage to the eyes. If the child remains able to see other dimensions when it gets older, it can easily see that this world is an illusion. They can see all the different entities that inhabit the world on a different, 211 PAGE. Vibration, children often call them special friends. Of course, the agenda is to take this ability away from the child. Next they begin the shots which lower the child's vibration dramatically through the injection of viruses that are foreign to the system. All vaccines contain the actual virus it is designed to prevent in lower dosages in order to so-called develop your system's immunity to it. It also means the virus is now in your body at low levels, and that can't be good for the natural system, especially as a child. Not to mention the doctor's hands all over the baby's head during the time the soft spot is still fresh. Many doctors are stressed and have been delivering several babies in one day. Some even smoke cigarettes between deliveries, and when they touch the child's soft spot, all of that energy is transferred to the child. The delivery procedure has now reached a state of barbarism with the advent of the cesarean section Caesar C. snake. The child no longer experiences even coming through the mother's birth canal, which is a very sacred time for a baby, which prepares them for entry into this world. Instead, the baby is cut out. Reason 159. The body consists of wheels of chakras, all sensitive to light and energy. The chakras control the images and sensations that are projected to your mind. The thread or cables that connect us all plug into the chakra centers. Learning how to stimulate and manipulate chakras is a major part of dissolving Indra's net. After the horror show, the baby arrives at the home. If they are put on formulas and not breastfed, the formula changes much of the genetic makeup of the baby. As one can see, this stuff is not called milk but a formula indicating some type of special mixture for transformation. The mother's, 212 PAGE. Breast milk contains all the specific nutrients needed for the baby that are uniquely calibrated for it. Anything else besides water or pure juices will alter the baby's pH balance on many levels. Next, the baby is placed in a crib which normally is fitted with bars. The baby has its first maddening experience with the cage cube. Most parents place the same toy that was placed over their cribs when they were babies, that circling chiming toy with the animals dangling. What this toy does is begin the frequency programming. Has one never noticed that the nursery rhymes from long ago still survive today, being played by these chime boxes? The famous "Go to sleep, go to sleep, go to sleep little baby," you can hear it even now. With this thing spinning over the baby's head in a circular motion using certain sounds, the baby is tuned even more. One can imagine the results of thousands of hours the baby spends alone with this insane toy in the cube. As the tot begins to get older, it is introduced to cartoons. The word begs one to ask what exactly is being tuned. A quick search will show that Ka was actually a bloodthirsty deity that abused children, but is that such a stretch to what's really going on in an innocent children's cartoon? When the cathode ray tube was invented, many men including Disney used it as a catalyst to the next level of mind control through hexagonal color embedding. Next, the widescreen digital television was introduced. The key is the aspect ratio, which is a way to open the mind of the viewer. When a person is viewing a widescreen, their eyes become slightly cocked in separate directions in order for them to be able to view the whole screen. Those studying metaphysics know that the position of the eyes equate to different states of consciousness. When your eyes are spread wide, your third eye is stretched open. This is a much more effective portal for mind control. Even now many tribes maintain that they are descendants from serpent races. However, What they are always excluding is that the serpent races generally crossbred with them in a forcible manner. These types of serpents, which are not your common garden snake, do not stay on the surface but remain in underground caverns systems. Few report actually encountering these beings face to face, although some have, like myself. I will tell you they are shapeshifters and take on a humanoid form, however it still becomes evident by the shape of their skull and brow, which is something like a diamond, that they are reptilian. It would be of value to know that the serpent races are far more advanced than we are at this particular moment. They brought many things that made them appear as gods to the indigenous people who were discovering a new world after the flood. These entities were so far ahead they had already accomplished hyperdimensional space travel. The serpent races are resource gatherers, and it is known they have been robbing the Earth and other planets in this system of various resources since day one. They have interfere with our natural cycle. Pyramid means fire pira in the center. This symbolizes the flame or fiery nature of the serpent. These pyramids the serpent races use to not only access their underground caverns systems but also as waypoints for hyperdimensional jumps, much like what's depicted on the movie Stargate. 213 PAGE. Earth has a history of great cataclysms that not only put many of the pyramids underwater but also removed their capstones. The Earth itself is a cleansing mechanism that seems to activate approximately every 12,600 years. During these times the Earth is inundated with water or scorched by fire. Many of the members of the serpent races during these times simply burrow deeper into the ground towards the center of the Earth in order to escape the damage that is wreaked on the surface. Even as this is being written, deeper tunnels are being constructed to house more underground facilities due to the fact that the Earth is currently due for another cleaning. 214 PAGE. Reason 160 The pyramids are everywhere not because it was just a popular style. This was the pattern of construction given by the serpent races in order to allow energy to be harnessed, developing working portals that could transport more than one being or person. When the stars realign, the feathered serpents known also as Pendragon Quetzalcoatl will return to this dimension to escalate chaos. If you remain, you must be spiritually equipped to fend them off. Basically, the elite members of a 1A1 haplogroup such as Serbs, Poles, Slavs, Goths, Ashkenaz, and many others have sealed their fate in being servants of the Dark Lord. They see themselves as creations of the Dark Lord and are awaiting the lineup for the return. They believe they will morph into the same type of creature the Dark Lord is and will commence to the feast upon flesh. No matter how sick and sadistic this may sound, this is the backbone of their belief in the Old Ones. The entire structure built on duality, it is scheduling its next showdown or Armageddon within the next year and a half. This is an age-old battle that existed before our consciousness evolved, so we have little internal memory of our role in all of this. The Darksiders have however accepted their role, sealed their fates, and are willing servants. 215 PAGE. Reason 161 Time travel is a thing of the past, lol. It has already been discovered and is in constant use. Disinformation has tried to make us believe the pyramids were tombs, and it is true many wanted to be buried in the pyramids to ensure their soul would have no problem making the trip into their next existence, memory intact. Your next existence for us is supposed to be ethereal, not taking on another physical body. What a drag. This has been happening since the elite have been manipulating this technology and using it to hold souls in stasis. The Earth is a fail-safe due to the type of beings that are living on and inside of it. Because many races do not get along for reasons that I will explain next, planets tend to go through many wars. A large set of visitors came from the Sirius star system, better known as the Dog Star. To understand how these races have become more advanced than humanoid Earthlings is a matter of one. Their star systems in distance, which is time, have been around light years longer than ours, and life has developed similar to the way we are now evolving on their worlds but much earlier. 2. Just as you may see an insect go through an entire metamorphosis phase within the span of only 1 month, while it may take a human several lifetimes to go through that same genetic leap, some beings evolve faster than others, especially when they are unhindered. A word on time. The English language does work twofold. When not knowing what the words really mean, it does begin a sequence of mind control. On the other hand, when knowing what the words mean, it puts you in the loop of secrets. It is obvious that we should exist outside of time. This is immortality. The mistake many magicians have made when being offered immortality is not considering these two things. 1. We are already immortal, and if we were not purposely made to forget that profound fact, we would know that. 2. Just because you are immortal does not mean anything more than ye shall not perish. It says nothing of the details of your lifestyle in immortality. What does it mean to be locked in a perpetual cage for eternity? The conditions of solitude may have been lifted, however I have seen several lions trapped in one cage, and those born in captivity lack 216 PAGE. The images to imagine what it was like to be free, thus they cannot conceive it and perceive the current condition has always been as such. They think they are really free, an illusion. This is what it also means not to fly and have hyperdimensional and extraspatial capability. You are grounded, your wings stripped, and you now think you always walked because you don't have images of you flying, except in your dreams, and you think they are just your imagination. The Most High said, I will make them in my image imagination, so thus your imagination is not to be taken lightly. Many think they have time, so they may give it another week. They are too weak, not knowing they are in a daze. They go about this for days, not knowing time does not actually exist for the immortal. Master knowledge is knowing that the movements of things hold great external knowledge, but there are parts of that knowledge that should never be placed internal, as it will affect the host as something foreign, changing the entire makeup of the host. Imagine if the sun never rose again, would people sleep all the time because it was dark? Of course not. However, people still consider when the sun goes up and then back down one day can be counted. They age themselves with ideas of their birthday, but we will not stray too far down the path of the wisdom of agelessness. It is known that the moon, better known by the ancients as Sin, was placed into our solar system at some point in time, however it was not originally here. Many of the indigenous tribes who had already made contact with other constellations had maps that did not include the moon on them. Then at a certain time in history, all of a sudden the moon begins to appear on astrological outlines. One should understand the effects of this particular moon on this earth. The moon controls mood DS. The moon controls tides, the moon controls growth and thus decay, and most importantly things like gravity and magnetic energy. I noticed when the moon eclipses it is easy to get out of the body. So it is easy to see that there would be a big difference in the energy of our world if the moon was not here. Many do not know that the change would actually be positive. Many have done studies on the notion that the moon was somehow towed here, and by the size of many of the ships belonging to these entities that is entirely possible. So I know you may be saying the moon, okay, maybe it could be towed because it is not hot, but nothing can tow the sun. Today you will find information on a top secret project known as the Lucifer Project. In this project an attempt is being made to detonate a plutonium payload into Saturn, thus causing it to go supernova and become a sun. Other planets have also been considered. This was already put into trial when NASA detonated the Cassini space probe with plutonium on board into Jupiter, creating a hole the size of Earth. The idea was to create a chain reaction. It is good that did not succeed, or maybe it did. It would then appear as if we had two suns in our sky, and we would begin to receive lots of planetary energy through the rays emitting from the new sun. One would have to look deeper into things to understand where man received this type of knowledge from. If our current sun was not transported here through black holes, it could have been another planet already, perhaps Vulcan, that had been given a boost by detonating various types of 217 PAGE. Elements that make planets go from frigid worlds of ice to suns. Let there be light. Our word ice comes from Isis. In their theories, men are suns and women are ice, not moons, two opposites. This entire matter becomes a little more difficult to exactly pinpoint due to the fact that most of us have never traveled into the cosmos, thus all the information we receive is second and third hand and surely altered. The elite, of course, have never been famous for telling the truth. Reason 162. There are so many habitable planetary bodies in space it is hard to know what is going on until we have the opportunity to travel the cosmos, which can be done with a body. There are planets and beings that have long since graduated beyond such petty things as what we are now experiencing on Earth, thus we take notes from them. They are entirely self-sustained, like a person can become when they are fully unlocked. In these stages one does not need to eat food or breathe air, thus his or her higher dimensional imprint has reached a phase of totality. Once that phase has been reached you will awake. Currently most are asleep, literally walking around a dream world, a dream within a dream, or a TV displaying another TV displaying another TV ad infinite. Strong persistence is necessary to be revived out of such a debased state. Inside of you, there are those that want to work, those that want to play, and those that want to disrupt your work. Be mindful of which. 218 PAGE. One is controlling you. There is the world, you, and the outer forces. You must consider your arrival, transition, and breakthroughs. Your states are physical, emotional, and intellectual. Being conscious of how you perceive things through all of these channels is key. One can easily see that dissecting the Gnostic story in the Bible takes heavy pondering. It would be good to remember that when the Bible came into wider circulation in 1611 most people could not read. The Bible was kept as a talisman or something of the sort that was believed to ward off evil by having it around. This is the clear indicator that when they began swashbuckling lands and beating the people into submission they were in no position to examine anything about Iesu, Nazarites, Grails, Illuminati, Jesuits or anything of the sort. They were following blindly their lusts for riches and rank. So truly it is only recently that the Bible has ever been properly dissected by someone who is non-partial and not in fear of death and excommunication, after all that is already happening. The path our parents chose was generally what their parent chose and so on down the line. Another point is what takes place in the universities. This is normally where lots of trickery begins. Oftentimes many embark on professions that really contain no skill without the aid of some type of machine. This is the other part of the war against the machines. A false sense of intelligence is created when a person learns how to operate, let's say, an electron microscope or a ray device. Without this device, however, there would be no place for their particular skill. Having the ability to operate it proficiently falsely elevates them in mental status. The person usually cannot build these devices from scratch because they lack the knowledge and especially the equipment for fabrication. If they ever go into a country where the basic skills like agriculture, irrigation, construction, and other core abilities are required, they will go from rocket scientist to janitor. Nothing they have learned is really of value. They have not learned or understood the true inner workings to things. This is very similar to how many people view the world. All the real information about what really controls things they simply don't possess. That's now about to change. We have witnessed this with the fall of silicon, or should I say silicon. In places like the United States, the elite find the people very hard to control now and much too independent. This is why jobs have been moved to places like India and China, where the people are much more passive and less opinionated due to thousands of years of dominant monarchist rule. Even now there are plans being discussed about a population decrease. You can imagine the elite have made the people build a world to its capacity, and now they want to enjoy it all for themselves and remove those that are not a part of their groups from the more pristine places. In the event there is all-out chaos, they will watch from the moon. All major cities are located on energy centers, the middle of the vortex being given the name downtown, alluding to the center of a vortex. People are naturally attracted to these energy centers like pigeons, so they tend to pile up in cities. When looking at states like Texas, you see miles and miles of unused fertile land that could ease the tension of the masses if they were allowed to inhabit these. 219 PAGE territories. When going to some of these places, you will find one or two people own thousands of acres that they are doing nothing with. What kind of buffoonery is this when a person can just come and say, this is my land and if you want it, it will cost you X amount of dollars, when that land was stolen from the original inhabitants in the first place? In various countries where there are limited resources and harsh weather, if borders did not exist they could easily inhabit other parts of the world. The elite have created a false sense of prejudice that makes the people hate each other but love their leaders and icons. When the United States joined World War II, which seemed to turn the tides, the stage was set for America to appear as if it had saved the world from the terrible Antichrist Hitler. Nothing could be further from the truth. As thousands of soldiers died on both sides, the rulers of many countries began to orchestrate the division of the people, drawing new borders and boundaries. When the war was over, high-ranking officials from the Nazi Party, depending on rank, went to other places to enjoy their plunder. Hitler and members of the Theosophical Society went into Antarctica after long stays in Argentina, sipping the finest wine from Argentinian vineyards. They eventually returned to the Hyperborean entrance to the pole. Other officials went from Argentina and traveled through South and Central America through the extensive caverns systems located there also. The only ones who did not get an upgrade were the regular people, who succeeded in only killing each other. They received a war-torn nation that had been reduced to rubble, a sound hatred for their neighbor, and a secularism that has yet to repair itself. While the elite laugh and toast a job well done, they began another phase. The Theosophical Society set up right in the United Nations and proclaimed itself the religion of the future. This will be how the world is prepared for the beast, the dragon, and the false prophet. Thule is the brain behind the New Age movement and the return of the Golden Age of Aquarius. All decisions are made by the ascended masters of Thule, and those decisions are then passed to their proper representatives in the UN. This is already going on, so this is not a warning of something to come. This is something that is already happening. The $800 billion borrowed by Obama was to allow those high enough on the pyramid to go abroad, change over the currency, and set up elsewhere before they snatch the carpet from underneath the U.S. They are only waiting for the green light that most in the inner circle have secured themselves. When the U.S. market crashes, the spiritual leaders of the world will come together once more like they did in 1986 in Assisi, Italy, at St. Francis Basilica. They will once again play the show of all coming together and the belief in the same God. Then they will unveil God's new representative to everyone. The power behind this individual will be Sunet Kumara 1 anagram. This is a mark Satan, there is a UU left over. When these beings come on the scene, if one did not prepare before you saw their actual arrival, it is too late. In known interviews that were done with the gentleman in the left in Reason 21 with Maitreya in the middle. He does the traveling about bringing portents of Maitreya. When I personally, 220 PAGE, saw the turnout, I was amazed. Not to mention this was done in one of the nicest convention centers in NY. His current talent is he can oversee all Maitreya. This means when he is talking he will shift to Maitreya, although the two, of course, look nothing alike. Then he will change back at certain points. I tell you the truth, people will wander astray when they see these signs and wonders which can be done through spiritual powers or technology, and they have both. Look at how they show up for Chris Angel, and he doesn't have an ilk of charisma compared to the ascended masters. In all works it speaks of this time when humans will have a final moment in making a choice to give their freedom and souls up for what will appear to be an answer to their problems. It will appear there are no other options for those who do not begin to prepare now. Most will accept it no problem as they see their leaders and icons direct them to it, just like they did when they wanted to endorse Obama. That was a test run, but not without its drawbacks. It will last for only a moment, if it is a second, and then they will see why they should have listened to all the redundant warnings that everyone keeps getting and ignoring on some level or another. I believe this also to be a pivotal point in our future existence on a level extending into our afterlife. This is all happening now in new primary reality, so no matter who tells you it's a hologram, or it's your perception, if I pinch you will it hurt? Our world needs us to begin to act like who we really are. Simply imagine if you were fully activated, all chakras on, could you not make a difference that would echo across the world? Indeed, you witness it now before you. This was my first move and do believe I have gone straight through demons to get to you, my beloved. The world is in desperate need of anyone who will have the courage and take the time to see what their talent may be and how they can use it to rescue more from the fate of the future. We are in Markuth, the kingdom. Ancient law states this dimension to be lower than the higher 9 steps on the tree. One still must consider the inverted tree, which has also been created and is indeed functioning. It is the demon world. Below us it extends 10 map dimensions down, the abyss being uncharted. This is the point also in religion, where the confusion of adding terms like Netzjim Jibura in addition to what those terms really mean according to Rabbi Lietman. However, Rabbi Ashlog says entirely different his analysis from the Ketherwal illumed in Shekinah, but let us not forget Rabbi Weissman, who was in mystical Darth Vahedin 11 Sephiroth blah blah blah. See, this is what religion has done to something that is plain and simple. Live human and uphold your race and your kind with all your strength, and in it you will learn to ascend continuously. This is the great reward in which eludes kings and rest in the hands at times of slaves who we disguise as such for a test to man and woman. They know the last will come first, say it isn't so, the Most High can make a crippled a climber of trees. The final warning had been set upon the chariot and rode through the land day and night. The ancient books had been sealed and I could open them no longer lest I become infested again with the horrors spoken within, whispering in my mind night and day continuously, but I had to know. The 221 PAGE new message was spoke to me and I wrote it down, and as I wrote the words began to disappear off the page. A voice said, "Do not write that which is for those who will escape the great test that shall come upon man, woman, beast, and jinn. I have placed this before them as a mirror that they may see who they are inside and cease from pretending that they have vanquished darkness but in reality have nursed it. Now it shall rear up and devour. Lo, there is no honor amongst the wicked." Reason 163. This is the symbol of Thule, of course, bringing us right to the serpent as usual. This meditation room has been placed inside of the UN. Many world leaders visit the room before they make world decisions. The room is shaped like a trapezoid, a pyramid with no capstone. The lighting is recessive as you go away from the mural. The mural is clearly Saturnalian, as you can see the scythe of Saturn along with the staff and the serpent twinning around it. The stone has been removed from their sacred mountain and placed inside the room for its frequency. Many of the Darksiders are seeking revenge for what happened during the Inquisition. They are releasing this anger upon the masses and feel no remorse or compassion. Dag Hammarskjöld, Secretary General of the UN, placed the Black Stone of Light in the United Nations in 1953. It is a 6.5-ton block of programmed iron ore. It is polished on the top such that it brings forth a sheet of minute lights that shine like billions of tiny stars. It is a natural magnet emitting waves of energy. This is the foundation of the New World. In Stanley Kubrick's film 2001: A Space Odyssey, the main character of the story, David Bowman, discovers that such a stone serves as a space portal leading to a distant part of the universe. In the movie it is placed on Earth from the stars and brings technological enlightenment to an otherwise ape-man tribe who live at the dawn of true humanity. 222 PAGE. Reason 164. Thule is not the run-of-the-mill cult. They have perfected channeling, astral travel, evocation, and as you see they are the willing servants of the unseen hand. Our greatest ability as humans is we create our destiny. There is no predetermined future for us, no matter how much someone tries to tell you it is. If you perceive everything about you already written, this means you are in fact moving backwards, not forward. If you were moving forward, what you will achieve next is based on you and cannot be recorded until you make the actual decision. This is supreme knowledge. Our individual worlds are set in motion by a series of our own thoughts. This cycle delivers our expectancies at various times depending upon how powerful our thoughts are. For example, a person could concentrate on getting a new job and it still take a year to get one. This is due to the amount of energy they carry that manifests thoughts. A person fully alkalized, breathing properly, and with a clear mind can think, "I want a new job," and get fired at that moment, beginning the chain reaction. When we control our reality, what we focus on begins to take its steps into our primary world. Many beginning to unlock this power are surprised that things just come out of thin air. Then begins the training of thinking things fully through in detail for optimal results. In addition, learning how not to think about things that when they manifest they will actually hinder you, thus creating your worst nightmares. There is a fail-safe so this type of thing doesn't happen often. They call it powerless. 223 PAGE. The biggest fear the elite have of releasing the secrets of power are the result of what a capitalist-minded world would create. How many people would immediately use the power to make themselves rich, to have lots of lovers, and be irresistibly beautiful? If everyone had the power to create their own reality within this reality, there would not be enough metal for all the cars they would have, enough plastic for all the gadgets they would have, enough water for the pools and waste of water that would go on. One should just ask for knowledge, wisdom, and understand, then you can decipher anything. Knowledge is all the information, non-partial. Wisdom is the ability to sort through that information and find the perfect calibration for your life. Understanding is coming to terms with why all things happen, and thus you escape duality. Duality will always exist on this dimension. Some may ask, does this book represent duality, since I'm clearly challenging the gods and devils? I will say yes, this is duality which takes place when you reach back from higher dimensions into binary worlds. The creation of the strong will always be to protect the weak, just as a house built of stone will securely shelter its fleshly inhabitants. We should never shrink away from what is right, no matter how enlightened we become. In certain meditations you can get so high you don't know your name or even where you are, but when you come back you are in this primary reality, thus the Most High has placed us here for a reason. I know my reason. I've given the reader now several to determine theirs. This is only to give you a fuller life of meaning rather than the redundant cycle of time where humans are harvested for energy and go about feeding, fearing, and fornicating until they perish back into atoms. This system which exists has with it certain secrets that allow it to carry on as such. We can call them the rules of the matrix, in which some can be bent and others broken. This is also the secret to the MEs. One of those MEs is called the Tablet of Destiny and remains in the possession of the elite. It was said that whoever had it could control many things. These MEs were the names, relics, and even spirits of power. Amongst all the gods' stories, it describes a plot by the female goddess Inanna to obtain the Tablet of Destiny from the gods by cunning. In the society of the Anunnaki, the female of their breed are not allowed to rule. Without taking you through the whole story, which can be found in the Sumerian tablets, it will suffice to say that one female of their species gained control over the Tablets of Destiny. Isis in legends slips a serpent on Ra to poison him and he cannot cure himself. Isis then makes Ra promise to give her his true creative name, in this case an actual spirit or Ba of Ra. Ra agrees and Isis cures him, and then the power is transferred to her bosom. This Ba spirit has now been placed in a stone called the Stone of Scone. The Queen of England sits upon it as if it's an egg waiting to hatch. In fact, it is also referred to as the Ben Ben stone, named after the Bennu bird that was in legend the Ba spirit of Ra Majuk. This relic, along with many others, are all in the possession of the Queen of England, who rules just about the whole world. In secret societies and religious circles, various types of worship and sacrifices take place that continue to give these relics power. This is how one group can rule such a vast amount of people. It is done through devices, vices that they implore and make the people pray to. They are kept by the rulers who, 224 PAGE, know how to extract the power of these devices and use it to continuously elevate themselves over the people. Reason 165. The Ben Ben stone rests underneath the coronation chair where all from the royal bloodlines have been crowned king or queen. The stone was carried by Tamar from Israel into Europe when the bloodlines began to mix. Ultimately reserved for the highest-ranking dark initiate, the Lentospheles or lion's penis, and the Paanuk or penis of the dragon, equated with Mithras, Phanes and Ahriman, the Zoroastrian devil, all as one god. According to Orpheus Morpheus, who I still have chained down and being hacked to pieces, there would be one Zeus, one Hades underworld, one Sun and one Dionysus. This is Saturn, called also Sevan, and Mithras Helios, the nocturnal sun beneath the earth voyaging round the invisible world, doubt it not. According to the rites of Mithras, which is Christian Gnosticism not written but divined, the beginning of all things was the law which proclaimed Christ, and the Holy Spirit existed at the creation. The brazen serpent was a symbol of Christ. Abraham was a type of God the Father, and Isaac a symbol of Christ, the Ram of sacrifice. Eve slew mankind, but the Virgin Mary gave them life. Mary was the door, and that it was closed symbolized her virginity, which was God's seal upon her. She was the burning bush described by Moses. She was also the censer used by High Cohen, the coals were Christ, and the perfume of the incense was his perfume, the myrrh of the martyr, on which prayer ascended to heaven. The chains of the censer were Jacob's ladder. Aaron's rod was Mary, and the bud thereof was Christ. The ark made by Moses was the abode of God on earth. It symbolized Mary, and the indestructible wood of which it was made symbolized the indestructible Christ, who will, 225 PAGE, rise every time he is crucified. The pot that held the manna was Mary, and the manna inside was the body of Christ. The words of the law also were Christ. The pearl in Mary's body was Christ. The rock smitten by Moses was Christ, and Moses smote it longwise and breadthwise to symbolize the cross. Moses' rod was the cross, the water that flowed from the rock was the teaching of the apostles. The darkness brought upon Egypt for 3 days symbolized the darkness of the crucifixion. The Amalekites symbolized the devils. Aaron and Hur, who held up Moses' hands, symbolized the 2 thieves who were crucified with Christ. Thus the entire Bible feeds from one story placed in several allegories and parables. I bore of the riddler who does nothing more than confuse what is simple. A man develops the fertilizer while a woman makes the egg. Many never sit and think how mystical this is, that an actual egg is inside the woman's body at various stages. Now we get to the meat of things. The adepts know that when a woman is due to bring forth a special child, the fertilized egg itself contains the child before it hatches. The period of incubation that takes place before it cracks open is called ruling from the egg. How many remembered the tale of the goose who laid the golden egg? Of course that tale had a hidden meaning. There is an egg that is about to hatch, as some already have, and inside those eggs are things I'm not even at leisure to discuss, since we have shined light on more than enough to keep one up thinking long into the night. I will say that those who will come from these eggs will be different than the normal human and possess abilities that we can unlock, but most do not use at this moment, and trust you will need them. You can see this all as a way used to give you a sense of urgency. Reptiles lay eggs, thus they have to wait for the eggs to hatch. Some take longer than other depending upon what is being brought forth. Reason 166. We cannot deny what has been placed in stone, the reptilian affiliation is clear. Knowing all this now, what will you choose to do? 226 PAGE. Reason 167. Unlike mammals, serpents and amphibians lay eggs. The incubation period of that egg is dependent what type of creature laid the egg. Some eggs can stay in incubation for hundreds of years before they are ready to hatch. If you look closely at the picture of Mary above, you will see a silhouette of a dragon in the shawl covering her hair. Gnostic Christianity is about bringing forth the seeds or eggs and to raise the brazen serpent for everyone to fall down and worship. It appears that whole plan is happening now. They only await the final arrival of the feathered serpent, Quetzalcoatl.
We are currently looking for more ways to get this information across. I'm ready and willing to speak to the people, whether it be one or thousands. I'm doing this with little human assistance to save our race. If you would like to contribute in any way, there are multiple portals to contact me. Remember, we are asking for nothing. If you feel like giving, that is up to you. Money is by far not the only way that you can be of aid. If you have rare pictures, rare books, or contacts, groups that you need spoken to, or you would like me to include something in the future editions, contact me. All contributions can be made discreet. However, I will tell you there is nothing to fear. A loophole has been created. In every horror movie, someone always gets away. We have never lost our love for a happy ending. In all this knowledge, I have also discovered ways to enhance the body and open pure energy portals. This cannot be done with only one person and needs infrastructure such as a facility and certain devices that change the consistency of the air and atmosphere we breathe. If you can seriously entertain this project, contact me by the information provided at the very end of this document. If you have questions, we will give you answers. All these cycles are only dreamlike moments of time in the divine consciousness we call life. The individual souls are myriad fragments in self-realization. The individual consciousness goes beyond this duality of subject and object and is subsumed in a timeless and blissful divine consciousness independent of time, space, and causality, which melt away after the illusion is destroyed and the matrix is broken. Even before I inscribed this note to you, my beloved, I was fast in contemplation of the most exquisite source. Keeping in continuation, I will never tire in mentioning my sustainer, which is inexhaustibly cherished by high emanations beyond perception, which can sometimes be grasped by mortals. It is indeed good, it can be gleaned and harvested by the wise to pollinate the minds of the guided. The field is plentiful and the harvest is reaped. Intelligent minds are waiting for counsel, and it shall be granted to them. We tarry too long already, and we will wait no longer in bringing the news to you of your evolution. I will explain your sequence, which is not foreign to all living things. You must first know what you were before, in order for you to know what you are to be next. I would suggest addition only. We do not like to subtract. That will decrease our ranks. We do not divide because we will not suffer or conquer, and we do not multiply in an unexpected stage which is premature. Addition is the only true math for the intelligent and wise. Did I ever fail in bringing forth profound truth beyond fear and emotion? Nay, I shall never fail to arise to the noble cause of bringing the most precious elixir of rare essence to all corners of the earth, if you but knew its true value, wholeness. We are currently located at www.resistance2010.com. You can also email us at resistancecore@gmail.com. I'm James Evans Bomar III, and we thank you for reading The Code to the Matrix.